All right, here we go. We are live. Hello, everybody. Another Sunday. Another Sunday. The Shaker Heights. Experiences may vary. We're coming to you live from, I don't know. We didn't ask him what Subway. I mean, not Subway.
Rapid.
But he's from the Mercer area. He's also known as Mr. Shaker. Mr. Shaker. And I want to bring to the stage Mr. Shaker, class of 85. Those who know him as Brian Sullivan. Here we go. To the stage.
Hey!
Hey! You need better lighting. You got great lighting there.
Oh, yeah. He has nice even lighting.
Yes. I'm a video guy, so I got like all sorts, like a softbox going. And...
Oh, he hooked it up.
Yeah, I hooked it up.
Let me see. There we go. Welcome, everybody who's tuning in on a Sunday. Hey, what's the Browns score? What are they doing?
It was 14-14 last time I looked. I know they played Thursday. I thought it might have been a bye week, but it's not.
Right. Because they were playing the Saints or something, right?
Yeah, it was 14-14 last time I looked.
Yeah.
And then I think they played the Steelers
they're getting destroyed right now, 35-14. So there we go.
Surprise.
Okay. On to better news.
Yeah. Hello,
Welcome.
Shaker Nation.
Yes. So we're glad to have you here, Sully.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here with Mr. Eric Green, who I was saying was a feared Shaker Boys League pitcher. We were always afraid when Eric was on the mound. So Eric was the man. And then Gabe, of course, the founder of the fabulous Boogaloo parties.
Thank you.
Yes, we always and wear of Willie wear, correct?
No Willie wear.
You never wore Willie wear?
No,
I thought you were. Anyways.
Yeah.
But the Boogaloos were always fun.
No, you were a Yankees. You were a Yankees fan.
Yeah, my father was born in New York City and lived in Jersey City for up until the 6th grade, and it was the era of Mickey Mantle, so he loved the Yankees, and he brought me up as a Yankee fan. And we were fortunate to go to the 1978 to 1996 and a couple other World Series together.
Wow.
So the 96 was really special because that was, the Yankees had been so bad for so long. And so that was just special, man. That's up there with my children being born.
So,
because that was at Game 6. So that was when... That was Wade Boggs on the horse, and pretty cool.
Was that when Jeter went to the stands?
No, I don't think so. That was
okay.
Yeah,
was the 78 the one with Reggie hitting the 3 home runs?
Yeah, and then I was at the game where he stuck his hip out. I don't know if you remember that. They were throwing to first base, and he sort of dipped his hip and. It grazed off his typical Yankee fun stuff. But it's been fun following the Yanks. And then as I've gotten older, really my father's a great guy, but really he, if I didn't follow the Yankees, we wouldn't really talk. That's all. I mean, I could tell him, Dad, my house burned down. He'd be like, well, okay. I'm a little concerned with the bullpen this year with the Yanks, and but yeah, my house burned out. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, Soto was so yeah. It's all Yankees with him. So
well, I'm sure he loves the Cleveland franchise because we contributed to 2 World Series, as you remember. You got Chambliss and Nettles.
Oh right, yes.
And then I think
Gamble too. I think.
Well, we got Gamble. Well, I guess you got him back.
Floated around. I think Greg Nettles was with the organization.
Yeah, Craig Nettles. Yeah, you got him. And then we gave you Justice, Dave Justice, that catapulted you into the World Series.
Yeah, and yes, it's been Yeah, for a while. But what was it, the 95 whatever, the Indians were a lot of fun to watch in the
Oh yeah,
90s. And
yeah.
so anyways, but yeah, we're Yankee fans all the way. And so anyway,
So,
so
I just thinking about that because I think about the ubiquitous New York Yankee hat and all of its different styles I see now with people. So, placing you with the Yankees, I assume you must have had a Yankees baseball hat. You were sporting that back in the day.
oh yeah. Oh
So,
yeah. I mean,
in terms of the
I
fashion
think
sense of things, for our
oh yeah.
area,
Yeah.
you were already sporting the trendy hat,
Yeah, it's funny because I'm chatty, and so yeah, I would see some guy with the Yankee hat and be like, "Hey, yeah, Dirk Jeter," and be like, "What are you talking about? Like
Yeah.
you're wearing a Yankee hat,
Yeah.
man." You're like, "What? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess so."
Yeah.
So yeah, so I would randomly go up to people and talk to them about the Yankees, and yeah, their hat was a fashion statement, so whatever.
Yeah.
But
So pointing that out. I
they
mean, yeah.
tolerate. But it was fun. And then when I lived in New York City, I was able to go up a lot to games. I would go by myself and hang with the old timers and
Oh
talk
wow.
baseball. And
Oh wow.
old New York. It was like they would say, "What religion are you? Are you a Giants? Are you a Yankee? Are you
Right.
a
Right.
Dodger fan?" And so I used to go out to Shea too, and because I loved, I loved Daryl Strawberry and
Oh yeah, man. And Dwight,
Gooden. I mean, that team was so good.
86, man.
The '86 Mets, and they stayed around. But I love that team. And once again, I'd go out and hang out with the guys and smell their cigar smoke, and so that was fun. Those were the good old days of living in New York, and yeah, that was good times. So
So take us back to your origins. You're a generational
I am,
shaker
well,
person.
yeah, my mom graduated in '63 from Shaker, along with a couple of my uncles and aunts.
Wow.
And um, it's interesting for my mom's yearbook. It was a really cool concept where it was called Shaker and Sound, and it came with a 45 record, and
What?
a guy named Paul Newman narrated it.
Whoa. Wow. Where is
Yeah,
that? Where does that exist?
it's on the internet. It's on the internet. So it's really weird. I mean, it's a really cool concept. It's
I'm
just
gonna
like,
find it and
this is
put it in the
Shaker.
chat.
Yeah, this is, and they recorded the sounds of the hallway and some of the performances and stuff. But yeah, he narrates it. It's really cool.
So
It's a
did
cool idea.
any of your relatives know him? Were they in
N-
school at the time or in his neighborhood?
Um, no, but I had some friends whose parents were in his class, and they said he was a very quiet guy. Um, and I think, part of it, from what I was told, was that he was, Jewish and Christian. And at the time, Shaker was very cliquey. And so the Jewish community, and, so he just said that he just didn't really find a niche socially there. So,
Hmm.
yeah, so it was interesting that he wasn't class president or something like that. So, but yeah, anyways, yeah, it's I've always was proud that obviously we always drop Paul Newman's name
Oh
and
yeah, every single time.
all the
Yeah,
shit, right?
we tried to get we reached out to Newman's Own and we were trying to see if they would want to be a sponsor with us and they never got back to us.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was on the film festival board here in Cleveland, and he gave money to the projectionist. In the old days when there were
Hmm.
projectionists. Actually, the projectionist union was very strong because in the old days, film was explosive. So
Yeah.
you had to
Yeah.
be, you had to
Nitrates.
be.
Mhm.
So you wanted to be compensated well. So that projectionist union was really strong. So anyway, so he gave money to that. Um, Yeah, it's funny. I was on the foundation, the Shaker Schools Foundation, and I think we reached out to them a few times, and
Hmm.
to my knowledge, there wasn't much, um, you know, interest. So so whatever. So, but
Unfortunate.
yeah, yes, it's unfortunate that that happened. So, for me, although Paul Newman, it's always for me, it's Gerald, it's Gerald Levert.
Yes, shout out to Gerald, man.
He was my guy. He sang in the choir with me. He sat a couple rows behind me, and it's funny because I really didn't know much about the OJs at that time, and every once in a while I'd hear his voice and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's a good voice. He's got it. But, Gerald never sang above the choir, and he was just a good guy. And
Yeah.
I have a good story with him. Later on, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was working at the NBC affiliate there, which was also it was the national news affiliate. Willard Scott would do the weather out of there, and
Okay.
Russert was out of there, and then there was the local station, and then in the back there was an urban station, a radio station. And so a friend of mine comes in past my office and says, "Hey, I'm so excited! Gerald Levert's here." And I'm like, "Gerald Levert's here?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Where is he?" And she goes, "Well, he's down in the green room area." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to see him." And she's like, "You can't go see him. You know." I said, "No, I'm going to see him." And I took off down the hallway, and she's chasing after me. And of course, I busted in, and Gerald and I just started wrestling around on the floor, laughing. And she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is Gerald, man.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is Gerald."
yeah.
And
I
we
had a
get so
similar story up in New York at Rockefeller Center. I was doing stuff for Elektra Records, and he was signed to that label, and he was doing like as a solo artist and with LSG, same thing. Like I came up into a meeting, and it
yeah.
was just like no pretension. It was just genuine. Like, hey, what's up? Yeah, man.
Yeah. And it was interesting because she took me aside later and she said, "Well, do you know who he is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's Gerald." And she's like, "No," she said, "Gerald is really important to the R&B community, because that was really when, hip hop, this was 91.
Yeah,
And when, hip hop was moving in, and, Gerald was part of the kind of the last of I guess you'd call Gerald a soul singer or a R&B singer, but obviously he had his dad's voice. And, she just kind of enlightened me that Gerald was like just a very important artist for, the music industry. And so I
yeah.
was like, wow, that's really,
Well, let's
great.
rewind. I don't even know what you did or do for a living. Let's go back to when you were a kid. I remember
Oh,
you in your junior B Cubs uniform, and I used to play catch with your dad at
yeah.
Lomond School. He and Mr. Thompson would carry the those huge walkie-talkies, and they would roll out the balls
Oh,
for
yeah.
us kids that had no place to go after schools. So let's start from there. Who did
Yeah.
you hang with? What was your
Yeah.
neighborhood like?
Okay, so I grew up in the Mercer area. I went to Mercer School, and I was a minority, because the majority of the school was Jewish. So
Okay.
I was the minority. I was the minority. There wasn't many black kids that went to school at Mercer, really. Whenever, maybe it was like three or four. Obviously, Jeff Brown was my best friend, one of my best friends. Anyways, but yeah. So, but anyways, but yeah, Ian Singer and Rob Spear and Adam Lehman and Ken File and Joel Heiser and Larry Goodman and Phil Burgate, Neil Lurie, Dan Stark was my roommate in New York. Anyways, great guys I met there. But yeah, I was one of the few Christians in the school.
Okay.
So it was interesting because I grew to love the, Judaism, and so it was great. It was a great experience to be a part of that community.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, it was interesting. Shaker schools were tough. And my dad enlightened me that my first grade teacher at my conference told him that I was in college material.
What? Oh,
Yes, this is true.
wow.
Yeah, hardcore, man. There was some hardcore old. She was an old biddy,
Yeah.
hired probably in the late 50s, probably mid 50s. But yeah, it was hardcore, man. And I felt really bad until an older friend of mine whose son went to Lomond, and he went through in the late 60s. He said, well, same thing happened to my son. We went in for conferences, and the teacher said he was in the fourth grade, and she said, I think your son is I think he should pursue trade school.
That
And
early?
yeah,
Fourth grade? Get
yeah.
out of
Wow.
here.
And
Wow.
he's now, of course, a successful therapist
Yeah.
in Chicago.
What is
Um,
this, Russia?
yeah.
Jesus.
Shaker was
Damn.
hardcore, man. Obviously it was a hardcore place. There was, to teach, in Shaker, you definitely sign on board, to teach really bright kids, and I wasn't one of them. So, but yeah, it was interesting. That was hardcore. But anyways, yeah, I really, Mercer was a great school. It was, yeah, like I said, lots of good friends. David Katz of the Acoustica was a good buddy of mine, and so, anyways, yeah, it was cool. Did you guys? I was a big safety patrol guy. Were you guys on? Did you have safety patrol at your school?
I mean, we
I'm
had, I think at Ludlow we had crossing guards, but not like at other schools where you had an actual person
Yeah, like
that would show up.
yes, because we were
Yeah.
students.
Yeah.
Eric, did you
I
have
was I was in the Lomond area, and there were those people, but I went to Montessori school because I had to start school early because my parents got divorced and my mom had to go to work. So, like you, I went to test early to see if I could get into to elementary school early, and they said, "Well, he's no genius." So I ended up going to a Montessori school in Cleveland
got
Heights
you?
slash East Cleveland.
Yeah, at Mercer, it was the kids. We had crossing guards, but we were part of the safety. We were the safety patrol, and so we would, go early to school, and we'd have these little signs that said "stop," and we
Yeah.
would help. We would help with the crossing of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was. We would be. It was very. It was like a paramilitary group because you were assigned. You were assigned like a. I was a lieutenant, and then
Yeah.
I think Ian Singer and Molly Sindelar and Marshall O. They were upper echelon leaders of the group. But it was like a paramilitary. We were this teacher, Mrs. Simi. She was like our. We would every time she drove by, we would go, Sean. she was she was a very whatever, but or a bus came by. I don't know. It was a weird thing, but it was fun.
No
in a weird,
fatalities, right? No
in a weird way.
fatalities.
And then in the winter, we would go. The kids would come in. We had a broom, and we'd broom off their boots, and then we would kind of hold them back before the bell rang to get into the school. So yeah, man, that was
A lot of responsibility. Wow.
yeah. I don't know if that was whatever. It wasn't good times, but it was whatever. It was fun. It was
And
fun.
still teamwork at an early age.
Yeah. But yeah, oh, interesting thing I wanted to bring up because with elementary school, you got to talk about. I don't know if you remember the Ludlow experiment where they took all the smart kids and Shaker and they put them in Ludlow. Do you
Oh,
remember
that
that?
happened. That happened. That happened 2 years after I was there. So like sixth grade, when I
Yeah.
left Ludlow,
Yeah.
they instituted that program. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It just reminded me because like Gretel Smith and Eric Keane was in that.
I think
And
Michelle Auerbach was too.
yeah, I always
Yeah.
kid Gretel because I was like, what did they do to you there? What was was there something like, were they pulling your DNA, and trying to replicate you?
It was like the
Uh,
X-Men house, Professor
yeah, it was
Xavier's
like
School
this.
of Gifted Children.
Yeah, it was. But we got to investigate more of this because this, I don't know, this is interesting. The Gifted. I actually, um, there's a there's a bunch of videos on YouTube, and one of them is about that program.
Hmm.
And actually, the Shaker Library, I did some pro bono work. I'm a video producer,
Okay.
and I'm a video guest. So anyway, I did some work for the library pro bono, and there were a bunch of these. I don't know if you remember, there was a cable show, Shaker Life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I digitized about 25 of those.
Oh wow!
And so you can watch them if you go to the Shaker Public Library channel.
I'm
And
gonna look that
so,
up.
yeah, the Shaker Library has a bunch of Shaker Life videos. It's fun because Daryl Swan, my beloved Daryl Swan, he's there doing rollerblading on the beginning of the show. Also, Louis Schechter, or
Yes.
Yeah.
he did a couple of really cool videos. He was really into Duran Duran. He went on to
Yeah.
be in the
He was ahead of his
film.
time.
Yeah,
I was in the video club that he started with the male librarian there, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, he had started that when we were back in high school.
Yeah, I guess his name changed to Alan Lane, and yeah, and he did some features, and was a director in Hollywood, and
So how
yeah,
did you wait? How did you get interest in that? Did that stem from high school? Did that stem from the
oh,
'80s and the videos? How did you
with video
do
production.
that? Yeah.
Okay, so I was pretty much a sports guy throughout elementary school, and at Byron, soccer and baseball. I was the starting center fielder at Byron,
Oh wow.
and so that did a lot of good with Dennis Hogue. But needless to say, um, I in yeah, when I went to high school, um, my athletic career sort of fizzled. Yeah, I played hockey,
Right.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
soccer, and then we all know the story behind the baseball program, but that's really what I wanted to.
So what was your favorite sport? And tell me
So,
about Mr.
well, I was
Noble too at Byron.
Mr.
How did?
Yeah, Mr. Nobley. Yeah, I mean, he was a quiet coach, so I don't know. I always felt like the Woodbury guys got all the attention from the baseball. We were sort of. I never saw. Oh, look at that! Yeah. See, there's somebody measure that.
Did you did
Yeah,
you did you ever
Hope
get
was
to
such a
play
weird.
basketball with Mr. Noble, where he would play the old man YMCA game? You'd play him one on one, and he'd throw
Oh,
elbows at you, and he would always. That's my big favorite memory of Mr. Noble.
oh,
He would
really?
always cheat. Yeah, he would throw
We
elbows at you, and you'd play him.
my we know we used to my group. Jeff Brown was part of that. We would take over gym class. We would go there and pull out all the volleyballs, and then we would play battle ball. and
Oh.
and just and so I remember like Mr. Noble coming out of his office and like just somebody whipping a ball like right whizzing right by his head, and he just went back into his office. It's like, this is our gym, man. This is our gym class, dude. You get back in your office. I
Oh
remember
man.
Jeff Brown. He could almost wrap the ball around his hand, and he would just throw that thing in and would just hum. And boy, if you got hit by that, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
So, it was,
Oh
yeah,
I
man.
remember we used to pull out the bottom of the bleachers. When you first come into the gym, there was the big basketball court, but then
right.
opposing to each side, there were the smaller courts. and we used to pull out the bleachers. And if you pull them up high enough, you could run up the side of the bleachers, launch off, and dunk. That was
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was fun.
yeah.
That'd be a
No,
lawsuit today.
Yeah.
You know,
I was
say
just
someone.
in that. I was just in the gym voting the other day,
Yeah.
so it was kind of, I kiddingly said to somebody, I never really did well on Scantron test in this building, so I was I was
I
hoping
do
that.
remember the Scantrons.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember. Yeah, so
Oh,
unfortunately, my Scantron
yeah.
didn't really work, but I tried. So, but
Wow, man, that's some real texture there. I mean, yeah, because I remember, yeah, it was number two pencil, and we had to fill in
yeah,
the ovals. Fill in the
Phil. Yeah,
ovals.
yeah. We used to call it abacab. With if you didn't if you didn't know what you were doing, you just would fill in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever. So,
I
um,
wonder, you bring up an interesting question, the fact that we had to take all these tests. I wonder if you could get access to your records at Shaker.
oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's
like
a good one. I, I don't know.
I'm gonna look
I'll try
into
to.
that.
I'll look
Yeah.
into it. I live in Shaker.
Okay.
I live right. I live on Warrensville Center Road. I live a couple doors down from Birchwood Woods Library. But
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
yeah, but I still have some friends in the Shaker School, so I'll see. You never know.
I've never been
Yeah.
to that library, the Bertram Woods. I always saw it, but
Oh,
never went in there
yeah.
for
It's a
for some
quaint little.
reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a quaint little library. Yeah, a lot of older people like it because it's just so small. But yeah, it's very quaint. And
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. As usual, the librarians cringed when they saw me. But yeah, it was a nice. It's a cute library. So um,
And the
I
Green Road
remember
Rapid Stop,
we used to take those tests all the time. It seemed like
the
I remember
Scantrons, yeah,
this, yeah,
this and there was
those standard, yeah,
Stanford Achievement Test.
achievement,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
It was
Yeah. Shaker was constantly tracking us,
hmm
and
like the Borg.
once again that the Scantron didn't work well for me because what was interesting, getting back to Mercer was a lot of my friends at Mercer were extremely bright kids, and so when I went to Byron, they disappeared. I never saw them again. They went to
Oh wow,
classes. I don't know where the hell they went. I would see them
right.
at lunch. We would play, wiffle ball or football, and then I remember just saying like, "Where do you go? I mean, I don't see you in the hallways. What the
Yeah,
is this some
yeah.
sort of a special place?" But yeah, I mean that it was interesting. I lost all my friends. Really, because they were obviously extremely bright guys, and so it was in a way, whatever it was sad. Um, I think that it's probably. I mean, at the time, it was a necessary evil as far as tracking goes. Shaker wasn't. Most schools did it, but I always felt like, hey, when I play golf with good golfers, I play better. And
Hmm.
I thought sometimes that I was kind of denied from hanging with those guys because they were super bright guys, and yeah, and I missed them. So whatever. So that was um, yeah. So the Scantron testing was quite a bit
I
in
also
shape.
feel too, man, like especially since like so far like on our show we've featured a lot of extremely talented creative artists and stuff like that, and I feel sometimes that Shaker had like a testing model or educational regimen that was sort of like one size fits all and didn't really appeal to the other creative stuff as much. I mean, you had the theater, of course, but just in
Yeah.
general. And so, when you say like, I immediately look at like, well, Shaker wasn't tailored to somebody like you who is in a artistic field or somebody like us in a certain way. yes, fundamentally,
Yeah.
but in general, I feel that way. Like they just applied one brushstroke. Either you met this or you didn't.
And
Yeah.
it was stressful. It was really
Yeah.
the competition was definitely there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, in reviewing, Shaker High School was a college preparatory high school.
Yes.
There was no safety net
No.
at all. I remember, you know, you midterm of your classes, you'd go up, teacher would have you up there, and she'd, bring out her, her book, and go, well, Brian, you're failing the class now, and and I would be like, okay, and she'd be like, okay, well, that's it. Good luck. Bye. There wasn't
Done.
like, hey, maybe you should, maybe we could meet up after school or,
Yeah.
whatever. Nothing. I never had a teacher at Shaker ever reach out to me because I was a horrible student. And I kind of found out that I had some learning issues, and
Okay.
they weren't as probably as extreme as I obviously back in those days, it was only probably extreme cases. So, but yeah, I mean, Shaker was hardcore, man. It was like, and obviously we had a lot of freedom. It was an open campus.
Yeah.
A lot of teachers didn't really pay much attention to attendance, and so it was like I said, it was this college thing. It was like, hey, if you want to come to class, that's cool. If you don't, then you fail.
Yeah.
And that's not
Oh,
an
yeah.
MP. That's a
Yeah. Yeah.
YP. That's
Right.
your
Right.
problem, dude.
Yeah.
I've got a question. I was just thinking about who my most influential teachers were, and my first most influential teacher was Mr. Woods
Yeah, Mr.
because
Woods.
learning his coursework for American history and all the
Uh-huh.
stuff that we had to learn and all the research that we had to do to prep for those tests, we learned a shitload of stuff. And he was a wasn't he was a Vietnam sergeant or something. He had a presence about him. He would like stare you down and point his finger. He was always the disciplinarian of the school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I was reminiscing about that because of course, in detention language, you had your detention, and if you remember, you had your Woods detention, and
Hmm.
then you escalated to a Malin
Malin, yes, yeah,
Malin, the
yeah.
dreaded Malin detention.
So
And
what was that?
if you really, if you really messed up, you went to Malin, and it was so funny because you would be in homeroom, and like Jennifer Kaufman and Debbie Loveman were in charge of bringing in the slips, and they would to go to Malin, and so
Hmm.
you'd see them and they're pretty girl and like, oh yeah, and they'd hand it off to your teacher, and they'd be like, Brian, come up here please. They'd hand you the thing. You'd go downstairs and Mr. Malin would be there, and there'd be a line like outside of this office where he would sit there and sort of like bestow punishment on you, you know.
And there were lunch detentions too. There were lunch
Oh no,
detentions.
that was the
Yeah.
Malins. And
Yeah.
he would
Well,
be like, okay, Sullivan, you cut a Woods detention, and you cut a couple other detentions, and so 2 weeks in lunch detention. Next. Get behind me.
Judge Dredd.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. And so I think if you remember this, Chris Bammel.
Oh yeah, I remember Bammel.
He
Yeah.
lived. I don't think he ever ate lunch. He lived in
yeah.
Mr. Malin's detention.
It was
so
like
funny.
it was like a courtroom. There was sentencing where
Yeah.
we
Oh,
just
yeah. It was like
well,
the Inquisition. You walk in there, yes, Mr. Malin. Sullivan. Yeah, and he would bestow your punishment, and then you would walk away in shame.
well, I got a story, and I brought it up online. Rest in peace, Mr. Baird, who just passed last month.
Oh, what? Yeah, it's too bad.
Biology teacher. We had a test in Mr. Baird's class, which smelled like formaldehyde all the time because I guess
Oh, yeah, the
there was
frogs and
dissection. Man, I can still smell that smell, and it
Wow.
brings up a gag reflex because I had homeroom in there. Anyway, we had a Baird test, and everyone was shit scared about going. So we got to the bus stop and we decided we're not going. So everyone decided to get on the rapids and go downtown to the terminal tower. I was with my friend Chris French. We decided to stay at his house. And we were hearing through the day, I don't know how we were getting news that people were getting picked off and taken to school. And I tried to get an excuse, but it didn't work. We got 2 detentions for each class that we missed. So there are 9 periods. We got 18 Malins. And I think for good behavior, we got reduced because it was basically our whole class in the Lomond area. Wow. We had 19 Malins.
Gabe, did you have such enforcement at Woodbury?
Nah, not that I recall. You know who might know? Billy Abshaw might know. I mean, not in terms of like being somebody that was, receiving those things, but Billy has like the incredible memory of like Woodbury and Shaker and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no. Honestly, I can't honestly recall. Like,
no. Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
that was
I got in trouble. Yeah. I just, when I think about like detentions and stuff, I think about when we got to Shaker and there was like the basement school and that whole other world. Yeah.
Right. The infamous basement school. Yeah, because I was down there because my homeroom was in the shop class.
Okay.
So I was down there. Actually, Eric, you would be interested to know that whole lower floor now is all art, the art rooms.
Oh yeah. When we toured, we saw that.
Okay.
Right. So that was
Wasn't that cool down there?
Yeah, it was really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, I thought of Mr. Hoffman when I went through, dragging all that stuff up to the 3rd floor, that he would be so happy to not have to do that. But that's a really cool area. I guess there used to be a shooting range down there.
Yeah, I'd heard about that.
Yeah. And then,
there are all these weird places, compartments, all around the school.
Yeah. And then, there was there was like the level 2 classes down there, which, once again, that Shaker mentality of where should we do the level 2 classes? How about the basement?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where you don't see anybody ever again.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, at least they put carpeting down. I remember that. We thought, well, this is really nice. And I remember one of my friends said, they should have dirt floors down there. Those kids. I don't know. He was...
kids are
summer
cool.
School.
Jason White, my friend. Yeah, he was like, what's up with that?
Oh, yeah, summer school. Thank God I didn't have to go to that. But
I went to summer school. That was my favorite class of all time was Zach Green. I flunked sophomore English. Of course, I had a teacher who Miss Rose, and she one of the books that was required was the Odyssey, and I remember she used to sit there with Cliff Notes and sit there and read from them and teach the book. And I don't know, whatever. She and I didn't get along, but I just remember. Anyway, she did me a favor because what happened was I went to summer school and Zach Green, I don't know if you remember Zach, taught. He was an English teacher at Byron, so you might not know him, Gabe.
Zach Green was the guy that was one of the founders of SCORE when he
okay, that's what it. Yeah. Boom.
Oh, okay. There you go. I didn't know that. Yeah.
And he also worked at Avalon Drug. Yeah.
And then his dad was a famous Browns player,
Ernie Green, running back.
Wow. Yeah.
Running back. He was the lead runner in front of Jim Brown, number 48. Ernie Green.
Yeah. But we anyway. So he taught a Black literature class.
Really?
So we read Native Son and just several books by Black authors and Langston Hughes we looked at, and it was like I loved it. It was the best. It was great. It was great. It was a great.
Speaking of that, how is Shaker going to respond to all of this stuff? all of this anti
Oh, the
woke,
oh the
teaching.
oh
I wonder that'll really be interesting to see how Shaker Schools responds to this.
oh. I mean, just from what I know, we're fighting the good fight, man. We're going down with the ship. So, Shaker has always been, the teachers have always prided themselves, or that they're a required reading, of course, but then they had the autonomy to pick other books to teach, which is
Mhm.
unusual in a lot of cases for teachers in different
Mm-hmm.
schools. And so, yeah, they're gonna, they'll fight hard for that curriculum. So, and I'll be there with them. So, yeah, that ain't gonna happen in Shaker Heights.
Fix
I'm sorry.
fix
Sorry.
bayonets. Fix bayonets.
Fix bayonets, my
So
friend.
I still don't have a clue of how you got into video production from
Oh,
Shaker and.
okay. Yeah, so well, getting back, to high school. So I crashed and burned. Um, Hockey was my last crash and burn. I just whatever. And so there I was. Mr. Bartley and I sort of agreed to part ways my senior year in
Mm.
hockey.
Yeah.
And so, um, I whatever. And so I was kind of like, whoa, man, what am I gonna do here? And in choir, my next door neighbor, Steve Schenkel, and actually Sean Levert sat next to him. And anyways, but he said, "Hey, you should try out for the play." They were doing Pippin,
Mm.
and I'm like, whatever. What are you talking about? And so it grew, whatever. I thought about it, and I didn't have anything else to do, so I tried out for the play, and Mr. Thornton, James Thornton, and Vince Cardinal were the two, teachers of drama at Shaker at the time. And I got a big part. I got King Charlemagne. So
Oh
I was one
wow.
of the
Okay.
the leading people, and that was amazing. And through the Mr. Thornton and Vince, there was this thing called ensemble, and so it was a separate group. We met at like eighth period, and we did a lot of that acting exercises. Mr. Thornton was very into Pilobolus, the dance troupe, which Mr. Capoletti was a part of.
Okay. Yes.
Um,
I remember
and
that.
so very much the breathing, and your body is your instrument. I mean, really amazing things. And then of course, Vince Cardinal, he was the first person, because I was, you would, in ensemble, we would do shows, we would do stuff. We would go to the elementary schools and do shows. And we
Mm.
did like one of my favorites was we did Shel Silverstein stuff.
Mm.
But Vince would choreograph this and put it together. And I was like, that guy is really creative. That
Mm-hmm.
this is something that I wanted to do.
Right.
He's a special guy. Well, I was right. Vince went on to be the head of the Michigan musical theater department, which Michael took over, which is
Right.
weird. Two Shakerites, Shaker people. That is the number one musical theater department in the country. But yeah, Vince was like, so anyway, so that was like, wow, creativity. That's that's cool. And so from then I was like, yeah. So and of course, the, I had a discussion with Michael McElroy several years ago. We went to coffee, and I said, Michael, I just wanted to thank you because, you and Eve Michelson, um, Dana Sidney. When I went into this group, it was very tight, but they welcomed me, and they didn't have to, because I mean, I considered myself a good person, but I represented probably somebody that probably harassed them in school,
Mhm.
the theater kids, I guess, and they were like, and yeah, man, this is great. And I said to Michael this. I said, Michael, I owe you, man. You welcomed me.
Mm.
You let me, fly with you. And he's like, hey, man, I thought, it was cool. You were an athlete and you really loved it. And yeah, I was, yeah, sure. And
All right
so,
on.
but I mean, that was, and once again, I mean, obviously, one of the, I look, look, I mean, in the choir, okay, we had Gerald, who is a Grammy winner, and you have Michael, who's a Tony winner.
Yeah,
Right,
I
exactly.
mean,
right, right.
there's not
Yeah.
too many choirs in the United States that have that type. I mean, a
Yeah.
professional children's school maybe, but
Right.
you know, that was like, unheard of. And
Right.
Michael was very generous with his talents. He wrote a lot of songs that we sang in ensemble, and whatever. Obviously, as a watcher of the show, it was a great show when he was on, and it really showed what a solid guy he is. And but I was very fortunate to be with him because he was very giving as a an artist to me. So anyway, so I became a theater major or minor, and then I went to Ohio State my freshman year. Thank God for open enrollment. Woo!
Before it
Because
was the Ohio State
yeah,
University.
right. And I'm a big proponent of open enrollment, man.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
now they send the kids to like Mansfield or something like an adjunct school. But yeah, I mean, I was a horrible student, and Ohio State accepted me with open arms, and I really appreciated that. I did not like Ohio State. I felt that it was way too segregated. It made me feel it was
Yeah.
weird. You go there and, the Jewish fraternities and the Christian fraternities and the Episcopal fraternities and the black fraternities. And you just had to be somebody. You were, if you weren't, in some fraternity or athlete or whatever, it just seemed like you were invisible. And then also it was so big that, all the kids from the different cities would all hang with each other.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, so I dreamed about going to New York City and going to school. And Charles,
Rest in
um,
peace.
rest in peace, extremely talented
Yes.
man.
Yes.
I was in a couple of his shows. Once again, extremely, just an artist that you know was very
Gone too soon, man.
gone too soon. He was just yeah. I mean, it was great to be in one of his shows,
Yeah.
and so but anyway, so he said to me, "You should go to Hunter. That
Oh
that's your
yeah.
that's your
Yeah.
that's your that's your place."
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I was looking at, of course, NYU and the new school, and they were much too much expensive for me. Probably academically, I probably couldn't have gotten in, but
Oh, you'd be
um,
surprised, bro.
right,
I went to NYU. You'd be
because I was gonna say,
surprised,
gave you
bro.
what's at NYU? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so Hunter was like an awesome place to go to school.
Yes.
I loved it. It was very much whatever. I'm a Shaker guy. I mean, I like diversity. I want whatever. It was cool. You were in a class and they would be talking about like some war that was going on in Haiti, and some guy would raise his hand and say, I'm from Haiti. I was, I was,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
my parents are there, and I mean, it was just like he could share his experience. I don't know. It was really a great place to go, and so so anyway, so I did. I was a communications major, a theater minor, and so I got into doing, I was a grip on some feature films, a PA basically, a PA grip. Um,
Salt
and
of
then
the earth.
yeah, and paid my dues there. And then I actually worked, I got an internship at the local Fox affiliate, which was not Fox at the time. It
Mm-hmm.
was interesting because, Murdoch had just bought Fox
Okay.
because the Fox station, it was Fox 5. They only had like they had like Married with Children and A Current Affair and The Simpsons, and the rest was were like old bad movies. But
Right.
what was cool about that one was I was in their creative services department, so they would let me write copy for the announcer. There was an in-house announcer in those days. I would write copy like coming up on Married with Children, blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
and I write these all out, and then I would take them downstairs, and there was some guy, an announcer, just sitting there waiting for people to give him, stuff to read. And I'd go home and listen to the copy that I wrote. And
Wow.
I wrote this.
Cool. It was cool,
Yeah.
man. It was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
In New York,
Yeah,
shit.
and it was
Yeah.
it was cool because Maury Povich got canned from Current Affair, but
yes.
he had to. His contract didn't end, so he had to go to the state. They shot that at the station, and so he still had to go in to honor his contract, but he wasn't using him. But he was such a cool dude. I was going by his office, and we started bullshitting about baseball, and he's like, "Hey, you're a Yankee fan." He opened up his season ticket books and pick any game you want.
What?
Wow.
Any game. Of course, at the time the Oakland A's were awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can I do the A's? I mean, is that cool? He's like, do whatever you want. He had a big book of Mets and a big book of Yankee tickets. And his dad was a sports writer, but he was a very generous guy.
Yeah.
And hooked me up with some Yankee tickets, a couple times. And so that was cool. And then
let me ask you something real quick.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I'm feeling that you've crossed paths with this person, and I really like him, especially now.
Yeah.
Keith Olbermann. Have you crossed paths with him?
No, the ESPN. Keith Olbermann?
ESPN political guy, and
I
think he's from Ohio somewhere. For some reason, I thought you'd have some connection.
Oh, yeah, no,
he's a big Yankees fan and all that. Okay.
Yeah, no, my celebrity stuff came after I graduated from Hunter. My then ex-wife, we decided to move to Washington D.C. She got a job there, so I wanted to stay in the creative field, and my former father-in-law knew this Larry Wilker. He was the head of Playhouse Square, and then he became the head of of the Kennedy Center.
Wow.
So we were having dinner with him, and he said, "Hey, I think I might have an opportunity for you." I said, "Cool." He said, "Yeah, the Kennedy Center honors. I can hook you up, as a PA." I'm like, "Yeah." So that was my first gig in DC, and I mean, it was incredible. I mean, Walter Cronkite, and I mean, I was backstage. It was like Walter Cronkite, Audrey Hepburn, Jack Lemmon.
Whoa.
I mean, it was. I mean, it was just like. I mean, it was incredible. Actually, after the show, we were all invited to go to this like gala, and I had to leave. It was too much. Like there was too much celebrity in the room.
Star wattage power.
Yeah, and I was like Jack Lemmon. I mean, Gregory Peck. I mean, I can't.
Man, that's Hollywood's golden age, man. You were right there.
Yeah, I mean, Audrey Hepburn. I'm looking at her, and I was like, who didn't pay her bill at the Ritz-Carlton, by the way. She was cheap. So because it was a charitable thing.
Yeah.
And then that was amazing. That's an amazing show, probably the best show on television. And what was cool was the people that did that, it was like the circus. They would do all of the live television shows. Mm-hmm. So there was this. So a lot of them had like worked on all of the variety shows, like the guy, I forget his name, who was the head of he directed it, but but he did the Sonny and Cher show, and but those guys, when they would leave, because they did Christmas in Washington, which was the presidential like Christmas thing, and that was Anita Baker and Vince Gill and a couple others. And it was weird. I remember I was just thinking about this. One of my jobs was I'd have to run scripts over to the White House for the president to look at. And so they're like, yeah, take this over, Sullivan. And you know, PA jobs, they're always asking for
Yeah.
weird stuff.
So PA, what's that? What's the acronym?
A production
assistant.
So you're the low end of the totem pole. You're the guy who they asked to
Necessary
get,
guy.
yeah, they you know, like, get 75 diesel batteries. It's 10 o'clock at night. Go, you know, it's Sunday.
Yeah.
We need to get them.
Or being a parking PA overnighters.
Because Gabe, you did some PA work, right?
Oh yeah. I put in my time.
But I mean, so they said, take this over to the White House, and I'm like, okay. So I drove over there, on Pennsylvania Avenue, and I'm like, okay, there's like the guard area, and I'm like, where the hell am I going to park? There's no parking, So I just pulled my blinkers and walked up. I would do that when I dropped stuff off. I was, before 9/11, man.
Right.
Drive up to right for the White House, pull my blinkers, go up to the guard check. You had to wait at that time. You couldn't leave anything at the guard check. So you had to wait for the admin to come down to get it. So I just would, blinkers up there. And Secret Service would come by and be like, hey, what's up? It was just so, whatever, good old days.
Normal.
It was normal. But it was like, I was like, wow, that is cool, man. So anyway, so I got in. So, I got, in more and more stuff. And then I was at NBC. And then I came back to Cleveland. And then I got into industrial video. It was a company called Avid Communications. And it was owned by Reliance Electric, and then became Rockwell Automation. But what was cool, it was an in-house, out-of-house production company. So we weren't just an in-house production company, which is horrible to be in an in-house. And so I was able to do work for Reliance, but I also did some commercials for like Lighthouse Pools and Spas. And, and then I also worked for like Lincoln Electric and Little Tykes and with some ad agencies and stuff. So that was really cool because you had kind of the, the industrial plus, being like a real production company.
Right.
So were you producing these commercials? What was your, what did you do?
Yeah, I was the producer, in the old days. Yeah, in the old days, you would go out with your videographer, your sound man, sometimes your gaffer, your lighting guy, and you would do your shoot, and I would watch the monitor and direct the talent. And in those days, you'd have to have a stopwatch to make sure you were at 30 seconds, because, and you would take your stuff, your tapes back, and you would sit with your editor. You would go through and log first, write down all your time codes, give them to the editor, and sit behind him and say, tape 2, go to minute 42. And it was really, so anyways, I kind of went through, so I kind of came in at you always judge kind of video production. It's like, I came in at Beta SP.
Right.
So, because 3/4 was before.
Right.
I came in at Beta SP.
So is that Beta Max? Is that Sony? Is that high?
It was the professional tape of and so they go in the big cameras, and so I went through that all the way up to now I'm still producing, so you're it's
so I'm listening to you.
SD
we share a common thread.
Mm-hmm.
Bartlett did you a favor by cutting you, and also Hogue for cutting you to get you out of your sports dream.
Absolutely. My dad was the Woodbury coach, a baseball coach, and I remember him saying like one of the Drollingers, who their family were big shaker hockey players.
Was your dad a teacher? I only knew him as the shaker rec guy with Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, my dad started his teaching career at Woodbury.
Okay.
And he was there from 66 to 70.
Wow.
And that's a whole nother thing. Gabe, I've done that, but my dad, it's interesting. Just let's go revisit Woodbury for a second. When my dad was at Woodbury, the first kind of set of black students, that came in the early 60s were then coming into the junior high into, and my dad was at Woodbury. And it was interesting because there are men, many, many men, and they're black men, and they will come up to me. They will stop me and say, "I love your dad." And I'm like,
Mm.
"What?" Okay. I mean, I knew that. I wouldn't say, I just was like, okay, another, "I love your dad. I love your dad. I love your dad." And I said, "Dad, what is, why do these, what's up with why do they love you so much?" And he said, I talk to them.
Mm.
We had great times together. I mean, I could just imagine, because my dad is not, if you love baseball, or, I can just, the scenario with me, I'm sure, was um, Walter Radcliffe, who, was one of my dad. He's a, longtime Shaker guy, or whatever, multiple guys, probably cleaning up at the end, getting your books, ready, last guy out of classroom. My dad would say, I'm sure he would say, "Hey, did you see the ball game last night?"
Mm.
And bullshit about, because, my dad reminded me, the teachers at Woodbury at the time and in the district, a lot of them had been hired in the 50s, and they didn't sign up for integrated
No.
schools.
Right.
They didn't. And I'll go as far as saying my dad said a lot of them were bigots. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not talking, once again, I'm not talking about black students. I'm talking about black people.
Mm-hmm.
So that it was, so I so like I said, there's this endearment to my father, which I'm very, he doesn't see it. you
Yeah.
know he doesn't. I say to him, "Hey," he's just like, "Hey, whatever, these guys were my ball players," or um
Yeah.
you know um it was just, but it was hard. I think that, whatever. I think, obviously we hear a lot about, the book, that just came out. Um, anyways, but I was thinking about this as far as, like, someone like Walter Radcliffe. I sent you. There's a picture of him at Moreland. It's 1963, and there's his class picture. He's the only black child in the classroom.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him, and I sent him something recently. He put that up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I said to him, "Walter, many people rest on your shoulders.
Right. Indeed.
Many, because
Mm-hmm.
it was not easy. That it was not easy for a black student at that time, socially. I'm not talking, like I said, I'm not talking about academically.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a social thing, interacting with the teacher,
Right.
because they, like I said, weren't, they were not part of the situation. And so, that just will always be something special with my dad.
Well, your
Um,
dad was like my second dad. I would
oh,
go play catch with him every day, which is what a father and son do. And I think I vaguely remember us listening to 3WE, listening to Tribe Games.
oh yeah,
And
yeah,
I'd go home and go to bed listening to Pete Franklin, and I still
oh yeah,
carry on. I always have. I'm listening to
yeah,
sports as I sleep. But I
yeah.
remember you coming up, and it's weird. I would see you come to visit your dad at Lomond School, and I would
Hmm.
be like, "Man, that's his son. He's like taking away my time with my
Yeah, yeah,
surrogate dad."
yeah, yeah. I mean, my dad,
Oh.
my dad went on in his career. He left teaching for a while. Obviously, teaching didn't pay a lot at that time. And then he wound up coming back to teaching, and Shaker didn't have a slot for him, so he taught in the Garfield Heights school system for the rest of his career. And then
Mm-hmm.
he also taught at Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. But my dad is like, he was the golf coach, he was the baseball coach, he was the softball coach, the tennis coach. He would announce the football games. He would, he's just, I said to him, because I mean, I would point things out to him. My dad, he would be announcing a junior varsity, boys soccer game or whatever, or a girls, whatever. I'm not going to demean
Hmm.
Yeah.
a girls, but let's just say whatever. He would say to me, "Oh, I was doing the girls JV soccer," and he said, "I always go to the coach before the game, and I go through all of the kids' names that I don't know how to pronounce."
Right.
And I said to him, "Dad, do you know how important that is?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you know how many times that girl gets her name mispronounced?"
Yeah.
And he just was like, "Well, that's my job, Brian. I mean, I'm the announcer."
Yeah. Right.
It's sort of, but yeah, I'm sorry I digress, but I
No, no,
really,
this
my
is
my
all
dad is
tapestry.
my
Yeah.
dad. Yeah, I mean, my dad. I mean, getting back to Shaker, I mean, that was the 60s, late 60s at Shaker was amazing time to be in, teaching obviously extremely bright kids. And they talk about Reverend Pennybacker in the book. He was a part of the movement of integration in Shaker. But my dad had his daughter in class, and he just said, "Well, I loved her because anytime they were studying about like New Guinea or some part of Africa, she had slides from it because her father had
Oh,
traveled
wow.
around so much."
Yeah. Wow.
So, and then there was a lot of talk, obviously with there was the Black Power movement was
Mhm.
big, and that was a struggle for Black students as well. Are you in? Or are you out? You
Right.
know, um, obviously obviously Vietnam. Are you in? Or are you out? Very interesting time. My dad really loves that time. Um,
How does your dad? I would. I mean, your dad's up there in age, but man, I would love to hear what he's saying, doing a contrasting those times with today's times, because my God, I mean, he was making an an honest effort to try to make this thing work, and he was in the right places and talking to people as people and giving them this respect that we don't see much anymore. It's that
yeah,
era seems like it's winding down.
yeah, but I don't. I was thinking about this. I mean, my dad, it's not like he was like, we didn't have like, whatever. We weren't like an extreme. He wasn't like my dad is a Democrat, whatever. But I never heard him say like, "Oh, I felt bad for this kid," or whatever. It was like,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, whatever. He's he's a good man.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it was I think of a kid, I think he saw that a lot of especially the black, young black men, were eager to have somebody talk.
Yeah.
And my dad was a young teacher, but it was really hard. It was really hard on those guys and women and girls too. And so I that was something that I was really proud of. But I mean, God, these gentlemen, they adored my dad.
Mm.
To this day, they will stop me. "How's your dad? How's your dad? How's your dad?" I'm very proud of him. But like I said, he's oblivious to it. He is oblivious to it. And I said to him, just, finishing, I said, "Dad, there's so many guys that come up to me throughout your teaching career, and young ladies too." My dad loves to write poems and stuff for the
Oh
kids
wow.
when he would especially he was substituting or whatever. And I said to him, "Dad, all these kids." I mentioned actually with Eric. I mentioned Eric because Eric had communicated with me that uh, that my dad had played catch with him a lot. And I said, "Dad, what what kind of goes through your mind here with this?" And he said,
Yeah.
"I just wanted to help people enjoy their lives."
Mm. That's it. That's what's up. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
yeah. I mean, that was like profound. And of course, he changed the subject right away to Aaron Judge not hitting. You know.
Yes, he fell short.
Oh yeah, God, you're not a
Yeah,
Yankee
yeah,
fan if you don't show up in October. You're not a
yeah.
Yankee. But
Um,
yeah. So
I was
anyway,
gonna say, yeah,
no,
real
I
quick,
just
man.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, no worries.
Take
No,
these.
I wanted to I want to find out probably through some other research, especially when you're talking about the time that your dad taught there, what 66 through 70.
Yeah.
Um, how many Shaker students got drafted and went off to Vietnam? You know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
who didn't come back? You know,
Yeah, I don't, obviously that was the junior high, so we didn't
yeah,
talk much about it. But obviously that, yeah, that was, people forget that, yeah, there was the movement of Vietnam and the atrocities that were going on and everything like that. But as time went on, it was like, whoa, I might have to go there, So
yeah,
I'm on the protest line for, of course, the people that are, suffering injustice, but also for me. I don't want to.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to
He
go.
was of age. Yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah,
obviously Johnson was escalating the war,
yeah,
and he was, and then with Nixon, there was in the beginning he was hated the liberal students, so he was always trickling out, oh, I'm going to get rid of, because you were deferred if you went to college.
yes,
So, but he was sort of dropping a little thing like, well, we might drop that, so you guys better cool it, because
yeah,
you might be on the next trip to over to Saigon. But yeah, no, he didn't. But of course, yeah, that was a huge part of the discussion. But no, I don't. He didn't tell me anything about Vietnam and this, and students that had gone there. But like I said, certainly it was a very interesting time to be a teacher. Um,
imagine.
yeah, and obviously with, like I said, with Woodbury, he had so many really incredibly smart kids who were really in tune, and so yeah, he said it was the most exciting time that he had as a teacher. So
I
yeah,
wonder, I,
but people.
I wonder when the smoking hall came into play at
Oh
Shaker.
yeah, I was thinking about that. Because
Yeah,
yeah, obviously, you went from this, obviously, I have a bad, I have a hard time with change. So, here you are at Mercer, and and obviously we were there. I was there K through sixth,
right.
and so all of a sudden, my parents got divorced, and
Sorry.
my dad, we lived on Halworth, which was right at the bottom of Thornton Hill,
Right.
and then
That's right. Yeah, because we went to sports camp together, and the
yeah,
bus would drop you off over there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we moved to Winchell. When my parents, I went to live with my father on Winchell. So I remember, so that was seventh grade. So I remember, standing at the bus stop in my itchy, new school clothes. It's a warm kind of day, and boy, that bus door opened, and it was like, bam, you know, it was great of a buzz. It
Yeah.
was a whole new world, man.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was wild. And so off we went to Byron, and at that time, remember, it was seventh through ninth grade, and so there were dudes
Yeah.
that like had mustaches, and
Oh, peach fuzz. Yeah.
it was crazy. And then another big jump was to the high school. I lost my train of thought. Where were we going again
Oh,
with
we
this?
were just kind of just talking about like when the smoking hall came into
Oh,
play.
sorry, the smoking hall.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so then yeah, so 10th grade, yeah, you go in, you're like, once again, you're in your itchy clothes, and you're like, whoa, a 15-year-old kid smoking a Marlboro Light. That's kind of interesting. And you remember that whole damn hall, you would
yeah,
walk through that
yeah,
corridor, and
yeah,
Yeah,
you'd come out
I,
smelling like an ashtray.
I can,
yeah,
in my mind, I still see the smoke billowing out into the hallway,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
yeah.
this dark corridor over to the side.
Yeah, I was going to ask Walter about that. I think, but a lot of schools had smoking
Yeah,
facilities, so it
around the
wasn't.
country too. It wasn't just
Oh yeah,
us.
I
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
I would frequently go. I was like a date for private school girls, and so like when I go to an HB dance, especially, they had a smoking room. So I usually didn't get along with my date, so I would hang in the smoke. I didn't even smoke, but I would hang with all the smokers.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was really weird. I don't know. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, how the hell did that happen? And I'm assuming that, during that time of the 60s, early 70s, there was a lot of change with this, social change, and a lot of, obviously, everybody was out protesting, and so they're like, hey, by the way, let's protest, the dress code, and let's get smoking halls, and let's, have an open campus,
We
and
got a list of demands.
Those
yeah,
liberals.
it was like prison, like Attica or something. Something. It was yeah. So I think that I'm assuming that all that stuff came about in like the early 70s, when there was a lot of militants in the high schools. So, but
What
yeah, I
we
was
need
thinking
to
about
do,
that.
what we
What's
need to
that?
do about that, it's a smoking hall. Think about it. We This is during a time when there wasn't in-depth smoking studies that were made widely available about the negativity of cigarette secondhand smoke.
Yeah.
Think about all that secondhand smoke that we all ingested.
Oh, we
Oh.
got lawsuits. We got
Oh
lawsuits.
yeah.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, can you?
Class action suit.
Yeah.
We need to file. Who's out there that want to take this case on?
It
We
was so
got
fun. Yeah, I mean,
receipts.
yeah, you'd have to be on an airplane. It would be like the smoking section and
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
smoking. It
yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
it's like,
But like at
yeah, yeah, it was
school, wow.
it was interesting. Yeah, the way
Yeah,
we handled smoking. But yeah, I mean, because I think when we were there was a Jack Taylor was the super, and
hmm,
then my junior year, your senior year, this Hiroshak came in,
yeah.
Yeah, I
I
remember
vaguely
that.
remember that
and
name.
it seemed like the party sort of ended with him, because that's when the smoking hall shut down, if you
Oh, did it
remember.
shut down? I don't
Yeah,
remember it shutting down.
it shut down my
Wow.
junior year, and
Oh,
Oh wow.
I'm sure he was taking the tour of the school, and they were like, oh yeah, and this is our smoking hall, and I'm sure he was like, what? You
Yeah,
have a smoking hall? Like, that's first on the list. We're getting
yeah.
rid of that, man.
yeah.
Done.
God, that's over. So yeah, he got rid of that. So
So that must
yeah,
have been 84. That was our senior year.
Wow.
We were a year
yeah,
behind
I
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
remember distinctively that ended my junior year. That was the end of the smoking hall, hippie hall, as we
Yes,
all
Hippie
all,
Hall.
all know and love it as. Um,
So, so kind of switching gears a little bit. What can you
yeah.
tell me about the Burger King parking lots? The Burger King parking lot on Cedar and Lee. There was
Oh,
a there was a young man group
oh,
called
yeah,
Boys
yeah.
Around Town.
Well, you know what? It wasn't. It was all made up. Um, it's a fraternity. It's called Beta Alpha Tau,
Okay.
and it's a fraternity, and
Yeah.
it was started in 1929
Yeah.
at Cleveland Heights High School.
Oh wow.
It
Okay.
was a Jewish fraternity, and at Heights at that time they had a lot of fraternities, and so that, yeah, the boys around town or whatever, blah blah blah.
BATs.
But it was
Yeah.
yeah, and we were like a gang or whatever. It was a fraternity. I mean, we would have meetings every weekend. We would pay dues. We would have
Wow.
we'd have summer dances and formal dances. We had a
Oh man.
full pledging thing.
How
We had
did
off
you How did you get into that? You're a shaker
my
kid.
um one of my best friends was Adam Walbaum,
Yes, I
and
remember him.
Random. Yeah.
yeah, he got me involved in it. And so that was my junior year. And so I was, I adored the class of 83. I loved them so much. I was like, I don't know, they took me on as like their mascot. I mean, I would go to their parties, man. They had like awesome parties. You would like have dance parties, man. You'd go
Oh
there and it would be like
yeah.
Michael Jackson and whatever,
Oh, people actually
Thriller
danced
and
at
shit.
those parties.
Yeah,
Wow.
we
Okay.
danced, man. It was like a dance. It was, I mean, it was, they were just, I don't know. That was just to me a special class. I mean,
Yeah.
Tuffin and Swan and Becky Baran and Kim Shuck, who I had a huge crush on. Carlos Martin, I hung around a lot with Todd Beard and Jim Walton. Henry
Tom Cruise.
Jackson. Daryl Swan was such an amazing guy. I loved him so much. When we played, we were on the hockey team together.
Right.
And my sophomore year, the team was really good. And so we would have to go over to Brooklyn to play these games up until like the state tournament. So we had a lot of time on our hands. And Daryl and I were not setting the world on fire on the teams. We really didn't care. So I got my cassette player and I got a jack that we could both listen to. And so we would listen to Dark Side of the Moon, and then he would bring in like, hey, Sully, look at, this is Jean-Luc Ponty, this, French, violinist.
Yeah.
He turned me on. We went to see him. I mean, he turned me on to so much music, and it was so great hanging with Daryl. And I know I haven't seen him in a long, long time, but he's a producer out in LA, engineer and stuff. And it's so cool. You had, I'm going to call him Doug Klein. But a lot of those guys, it's really cool. I think that's another thing about Shaker was, definitely was the feeling in the air. Like, you could do it, man. You could do what you want to do. If you want to be in the music profession, move to LA. Mr. Hoffman, if you want to be, a designer, you go to Parsons. I know Ty and Dan Stark and
Brannigan, Allison Beard.
Scott Griffin. Scott Griffin.
Yes.
But I mean, it was like, do it, man. Go for it. And I think that, like I said, that was a special part of Shaker too, is that I was like, go for it, man.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah. And, that's what I found, like I said, in the theater department. And, but overall, I think that was like a vibe at Shaker was, it's a big world out there. And if you have a passion, you're going to shoot for the stars, man. You're not going to be, cleaning up in a record studio.
Yeah.
You're going to be a producer. You're going to have your own, and, but Daryl was a real special guy, for me.
Are you still in touch with any of your Shaker cohorts or friends from back then?
Chris Garfoli, although Chris, I'm sorry, I haven't talked to him in a while, but he is my closest friend from Shaker. He's just a really amazing guy, and so I still hang with him, although not recently, and he hates me, I'm sure, for it. But he's a good. He's a Mercer guy, back in the day. So we go back a long way. So so I see him, and and then Facebook, obviously you see all of our buddies. It's unfortunate, a lot, because I was contemplating my friend group. I got divorced, so I had to kind of redo things. Right. And so many of our classmates do not live in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, because obviously such, talented people, have obviously the brain drain, they call it, but it's sad. But once again, like I said, it's Shaker, man. You go for it. You go for it. You move to, you go for it. And so, but it's a shame, because like I said, most of them are out of town. You find that out with the, with the reunions, you have so many.
Yeah.
Well, yours is coming up this summer.
Oh my God. I was on the planning committee for the last reunion. Mm-hmm. But I never would do that again, to say, it was horrible. Oh man. Gabe, were you?
I was a part of this. I was part of 40th. Yeah. I mean, we had a committee. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I saw that you guys, the kickball game was really fun.
Yeah.
That was a great idea. There's a young woman that has taken over the reunion this time around. Marina Shrine. And anyways, but Shine and Mackie. Anyways, but the last time around it was um, Miss Walters and myself, and we had a great reunion. It was
Yeah.
really it was at the skating club, and our 20th fifth wasn't really the greatest, so it was. I sort of was like, yeah, I want to do this, kind of make it like a 25th. So um, yeah, we had a great time, and it reminded because one thing that wanted to do more than anything was go to a football game. I made up these little footballs to throw. Sometimes they would do that. They still do throw the mini
Oh
footballs. The
yeah, I remember. I
cheerleaders.
had one. I have
Yeah,
one.
the cheerleaders.
Yeah.
There was nothing better than a fall day in those football stands.
Yes.
I loved it. It was
Yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah.
That crisp air, and it was the sun. It was great. My dad would always say, at Shaker, it's a collegiate school, so we don't, they don't play at night. They play during the day.
Right.
It's a college thing. Night
Right.
football is for.
You know what I always remember, and I noticed this, especially since I live in Rochester, there's always a contingent of people that wear the rivals gear. Like the Buffalo Bills are huge around here. So you see a lot of Dolphins fans because they're the opposite, direct opposite. I remember seeing so many people with Michigan paraphernalia. Do you remember that being at Shaker? I remember seeing that and
Oh,
thinking, wow, and there are a lot of Steelers fans too, as we well know, especially
oh
Michael
God, yeah,
Lukaczek
yeah.
growing up right across the street
Tony
from me.
Peck,
Yeah.
Christine Corbacero.
I
Uh,
remember.
what's her name?
Yeah, they're. And obviously I'd get shit for being a Yankee fan.
Azizi.
Mike Lukaczek would always be, "You're front runner."
Oh yeah, please,
Always give me
Mike.
shit. He was a Steeler fan, so
Yeah.
whatever. Screw
Oh,
you,
as an
Lukey.
aside, what's that score right now? Because they're playing the Ratbirds, the former Browns,
Oh,
and Lamar always has problems against the Steelers.
I think that game is over. Let me check the
Yeah,
kicker.
I hope they
oh,
won. And
The Steelers beat the Ravens 18-16.
damn it!
so you're no.
No,
That
Wait,
coach
you,
is
you,
unbelievable, man.
anybody but
you
the
have money on
Steelers.
you have money on the game or something, Gabe?
No, but anybody that beats the Steelers is my friend.
You're your friend.
Yeah. So
Getting back to the Michigan thing, I remember as I was as a freshman at Ohio State, walking down the street was Pepper Johnson, and
yes,
he was wearing a Michigan jersey, and I said, "What's up with that jersey, Pepper?" And he goes, "We're gonna beat their ass." I was like, "Okay, that's cool."
yeah. Well, we play them what next week or after Thanksgiving? When did we
Yeah,
play Michigan?
yeah, yeah.
Buck.
After Thanksgiving, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah. I mean, obviously, Dade can't or whatever. Yeah,
Speak.
he's another Cooper that just can't beat Michigan. So
Oh
No,
yeah. Speaking
but
of hockey,
Indiana, man.
did Tuffin play hockey at Ohio State?
yeah, I think he was on like the the practice squad,
Okay.
but yeah, he was a part of that. He did. I think he was also kind of a part of the practice squad for the football team
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. He Brian was a lot of fun. He is a lot of fun. Big, obviously a big. He was a lot of because once again, like I said, those bus rides over to Brooklyn were long. So yeah, Brian was always a lot of fun.
And
How
I can
about
imagine,
He kept
going over to
things.
Brooklyn, especially when you guys went over to the West Side.
oh
You
yeah,
see
what was
black
that like with all your
players.
black hockey players?
Oh, I don't know. I don't
How about
remember.
Parma?
Yeah, no, guys, I don't remember anything like
Rocky River. Yeah.
overt racism or anything like that.
Do you remember the name Mackie Bentley?
Oh, Mackie is a good friend of mine. Mackie
What
is
Yeah.
an exceptional human being.
what happened with his we're into sports, not to say that sports is the most important thing. I
No,
remember
it
hearing a
is.
lot about what class was he in? And
Mackie was in 80 or 79. I Mackie, I was a rink rat, man. And I love those Shaker hockey guys. And so
Yeah.
my dad would take me to the away games, and um, that there was the 81 team that went undefeated. I think I went to almost all those games. I
Yeah.
went down. I went down to Bowling Green. I love those. They were my heroes. Mackey.
Lukashevs got me. They brought me along for. I became a hockey fan, especially during
Yeah,
'80. I think we win in '80 because I remember people were. I was
yeah. That
really
was
entrenched in the USA Olympic team at the same time.
Yeah, because 81, I think, was they were undefeated, and that was like Mark Ganger, and then obviously the great goalie Adam Siegel,
Yeah.
um, but Mark Ganger and Mark Spring. I mean, Ganger was like, once again, he was he could score at will. That dude. I mean, it was
Mm.
like I said, these guys are my heroes, and Mackey was my biggest hero. I mean, I
When did
love
he
Mackey.
graduate? When did he
Like I said,
graduate?
I think it was 80 he
Okay.
graduated.
Yeah,
And
he
then
grew up in the
Abu,
Ludlow area.
Keith Abood
Yeah.
he's still really good friends with Keith. And
Was Abood? Was he a goalie? I remember. Was he a
no,
goalie?
Keith was the center. He was the captain of the team. Oh,
Okay.
that was 79 or whatever. Yeah, that was, everybody had really long hair, and there's a lot of substance abuse in that. And so not Keith. Um, no, because Keith was, I know, very upset because they were supposed to win the state championship, and they got into some trouble, and um
Oh wow.
and they got into a big fight, and then so they lost players. They got thrown out, and so the final game they lost. But that was another
Oh
amazing
wow.
amazing team. And then Mackey, he was on the line with Mike Berg, and
Yeah.
Mike Berg is now the head of the hockey program at Shaker, or the youth hockey program.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I coached
Yeah.
with him. Not with him, but I coached for him at Shaker. Yeah, I did some youth coaching. That's how I think I reconnected with Mackey. But Mackey is a very special guy to me. He was a real mentor for me after my divorce, and he's a great guy. He lives in Solon, and he is a councilman there. He's an
Yeah,
architect.
that's what
Yeah,
I read about him. Did
I
he
mean,
play?
he's an architect. He does commercial architecture, but he also does.
Okay.
He also is a councilman. I actually made phone calls for him and everything when I was. But yeah, he would be a great guy to have on the show.
Do you
Because
remember? I'm sorry to cut you off. Do you remember
oh no,
Richard Robinson? He came after us. He was Jillian Robinson. He was all state. He was a black
oh
hockey player. He was all state with Shaker. I think he was class of probably 86 or 87,
okay,
88. I don't know if you
yeah, no,
followed it past then. You're probably in New York at that time.
yeah, I was, yeah, but like I said, I was glued to those guys from 78 up until I got into the. Here's an interesting fact, which is funny and weird. So Shaker, the theme song for the hockey team is it's a the they play it to this day. I forget who the guy who it's like it's like a synthesizer thing,
Okay.
but it's used in the film Midnight Express.
Oh,
Hmm.
Which
Giorgio Moroder.
Marauder,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, so I was, I think, the only one that got the joke, because it was like you have a theme song of a movie of like a Turkish prison, a
Yes.
drug
Yes.
dealer who's in a Turkish prison, real uplifting, but they still use that theme
That's
song
a
to this
classic
day.
song, man. He did the
Yeah.
soundtrack for the Richard Gere movie, American Gigolo.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 But it's just weird. Like I said, I think I was the only one that got that joke. Maybe, obviously I'm a film buff. And I was like, why are they using that in this song? Every time I think about it, I think of,
Yeah.
prison rape, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Billy something. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 Because Oliver Stone originally wrote the script for Midnight Express.
Oh, no kidding.
So yeah. So yeah. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, Giorgio Moroder, man, classic dude, man,
Yeah, that's
classic.
just a weird and not, whatever. It always stuck in my head like, why the hell is this the theme
Yeah.
song? And like I said, they still use that damn thing.
Wow. Yeah, sometimes I feel like Shaker in some ways it's like memories, to quote this writer. What's her name? I forget her name at the moment, but like memories in amber. And there's certain things I still feel like are that describe Shaker that way. Just memories encased in amber. But
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I mean, yeah, I mean, once again, obviously part of Shaker was you just had exceptional people going to that damn school. There was just a lot of fun, really
yeah.
bright. So yeah, I don't know. It just that yeah, I mean, whatever. Obviously, everybody has their own memories.
Does it still have that feel now? I mean, you're still in the area. Does it still possess the same feeling that it had when that you have the memories you have of it growing up?
Yeah, because I did a lot of work for the schools,
Mhm.
video work for the schools. Um, and so I was in the schools a lot. I haven't been in the probably in the past 5 years, but I still sort of keep up as far as like Robin Minter, if you remember, she was younger than us, but
Yeah,
her kids just graduated, so I would see them on Facebook or whatever. But
yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, I mean the hockey team, the sports. I mean, they have a crew teams. They have,
Oh wow, they have
it's a
crew.
yeah, they have
Wow.
a crew team, but they have an amazing music department. Um, they yeah, I mean it's still a great they as you saw Eric with the arts, that area down in the basement, with the
Hmm.
they you know
It feels like Solon has stolen our fire.
well yeah, a lot of kids
Yeah.
actually yeah, there was
We
there
need to
was
roll up
actually
there.
there
We
was
need to roll up to
actually
Solon.
yeah, yes, a lot of our classmates who stayed definitely went to Solon. And so yeah, so Solon obviously is like one of the top schools in the state of Ohio. Yeah, they stole all of all of those kids.
What's their
Um,
mascot? What's Solon's mascot?
so
Do you know?
they're a Comets, I think, the Solon Comets.
I would think that their taxes are lower too because of all the commerce,
Yeah,
especially with
but
Beechwood the same
but
too as well.
but I mean, of course, I don't know. It's obviously it's a vanilla community. It's whatever. It is what it. I mean, it's whatever. It's a nice community, but it certainly doesn't have the charm and character of
Hey
Shaker.
man, you need to put some heat on the city because that facade at Lee Road Rapid Stop
Uh huh.
looks like it got shot up in some type of urban warfare shit. It's all crumbling facade of as the rapid
Oh,
goes. If you're on the Van Aken Rapid as you're going up toward Warrensville Center, right?
yeah.
As you come into Lee Road, the brick facades that were laid there in 1980
Hmm.
are a crumbling mess.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
unfucking acceptable.
Yeah.
It's Shaker Heights. We
It's
have
look
standards.
it's
Yeah.
looking like Beirut.
Well, well,
Yeah.
it's interesting because Shaker used to own that line, the art, which is now
Right.
the RTA. Shaker owned that. Then it was transferred over to the RTA, which we call now. But so technically, the city doesn't own it anymore. But I'll put in. I'll let them know next time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
getting back to but getting back to the high school, getting back to this, Shaker is alive and well. Thanks. There's been this renaissance because I don't know when you guys are back. I think you guys were at you had a thing at the Vanaken district, right?
Yes. Yes. Over Paloma.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
there it
I
is.
mean, isn't that like amazing over there?
I mean, it's nice, but I'm gonna keep it 100. So the Ray, I looked at the rents at the Ray. They have over
Oh,
108 apartments available. This ain't New York. This is not the
oh,
Bay.
I know.
Okay,
I know. No, they
and
are. They're, you're right.
they're bugging. They're bugging. $6,000 a month for a, I think it's a multi-bedroom apartment. I'm sure it has the view and the balcony, but we're not New
Yeah.
York here, man. We're not the
Yeah, I know.
Bay. We're
Cause yeah,
L.A.
with the new, I mean, overall, because we did video for that district as they were building it up, and
Yeah,
John Ratner, who of the Ratner Forest
right.
City folks, whose dad was a BAT, or not his dad, but his grandfather was a BAT. Um, he and the city obviously are building that up. Oh, look at that! Oh, here. Oh, we got a. Billy is complaining about the property taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know it's high, and you know what? That those damn baseball fields that we played on, they're still shitty.
They
They
are
haven't
shitty.
they haven't
Cleveland
touched
Heights.
them.
Cleveland
They
Heights
haven't
gets the
touched them. I
biggest.
think
Cleveland
so.
Heights
I
is
don't know.
the biggest bang for their buck. They've got all
Oh
these pools around. They've got that big
yeah,
hockey facility.
yeah. I coached there at the big rink, but yeah, it's funny. Yeah, we have that tiny little rink still. And Shaker still remains conservative with their with their. So I mean, Thornton is really nice.
Yeah,
The pool, they keep that up,
that
and
area between the Rapid and the entertainment complex where we had our what's it called again? Van
oh
Aken.
the
All the
district.
all the
Yeah.
wires and stuff between the Rapid and in the, it just looks like chaos. It looks like a mess. Someone's got to
Oh
do a better job. I don't know if they're going to clean that up
well,
visually, but there's a lot of crowding and a lot of, especially with those new apartment buildings over across from where on the other side of Drager's off of Chagrin, just
yeah.
before you go into Lomond, all that new structure, all those new townhouses or what have you. Just
Well,
too much.
on the positive note, that is the poo, man. That is saved Shaker. That the Shaker housing prices have continued to hold and are going up. And even in that Sussex area, they're
Yeah,
really going up because these young people,
yeah,
we're all old now, but they want, as they're environmentally conscious. They don't want they a lot of they so they want a walkability. They
Yeah.
want to be able to get on their bikes or whatever, or take a very short drive. And it just that's a they close down the street in the summers, and they have band concerts, and they have the food also. Families really love that. And so that's been a
but the
godsend
roads,
for
but the
Shaker.
roads, but the roads over there on Chagrin from like Warrensville Center all the way down to where it turns into Kinsman. I mean, the roads are shitty.
Yeah, yeah, Lomond
Oh,
up through Sussex and
Yeah, yeah.
Scottsdale.
Even down in Ludlow area, the roads are shitty off of Southington, and it's just like, do better. That's why you need to run for mayor.
I will.
But
Mhm.
Yes, I will do that. Yeah, it's funny how it's weird because I've always found for a long time there was Mayor Kelly, but for a long time when we were growing up, it was the mayors were a Republican.
yeah,
So it was this odd thing. So you had a very conservative mayors, and then obviously you had this liberal community of the schools, and it was weird. But anyways, I think it wound up where Shaker was very conservative with their spending of
Oh yeah,
public works, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, they
So
just
I guess
step up.
they're keeping up um, that
So
yeah.
trade.
so you need to run for mayor first,
I
and
will
then I'll
run for
run for mayor
mayor.
second, and so we can keep this momentum going.
What's up, Gabe?
Or
Gabe or Eric? Do you have any plans of coming back to Shaker?
I'm trying to come back if they'll have me.
Oh,
Like
we would love to have you.
no, but I'll talk with you about that offline. But
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I know I would come back. Certainly, I would
Yeah.
come
I
back.
mean, obviously the clinic is really the big,
Yeah.
employer here. And thank God, like I said, it's incredible. You drive from on South Woodland from Lawrenceville to Lee, street after street after street of just beautiful homes. They're like $600,000-700,000, and
Yeah.
they're all full.
Yeah. It's
It's
crazy.
yeah, and it's like, and I lived on Macaulay, in the high rent district for a while. And anyways, but I met a lot of people from out of town,
Hmm.
a lot of doctors, and they were so like, they were loving on Shaker, man. They loved the
Yeah.
schools. And like I said, there's still that vibe. I mean, you drive by Fernway or Boulevard, and you see all the parents, they're walking their kids to school, and it's still that, you still got that feeling of like a real community.
Hmm.
And people are, like I said, they're still digging the vibe of Shaker. And I was really, like I said, I was involved with the Shaker schools, and I was especially, I mean, Mark Freeman brought me in as far as the vendor goes. I love Mark. Mark is a family friend, and he did a great job with Shaker. Dr. Hutchings came in, um, and he was actually black.
Mm.
So imagine that, a black superintendent in
Right.
Shaker.
Right.
He was
First.
he was awesome. He was just I loved him. He and he was the one that
He's in the book.
actually
Yeah.
yeah, and actually yeah, I don't know. I was a little upset. I've heard her speak um about him in a couple things she said, like disastrous. And he was young. It was his first
He's the
um
guy that came from DC. Is he the guy
yeah,
that came
from
from DC?
Alexandria.
Okay.
And they brought him in. There was definitely, and I will say, now Shaker has this Dr. Nicole Patterson. She's the diversity person at Shaker, and I just came upon, I watched something last night because I've been doing a little bit of Shaker homework, kind of catching up with the schools because I haven't. But there's a video with her. She was at the City Club recently, and she took again the page from Dr. Hutchings, which is, people wanted this change, and the change was the faculty looking at black students culturally in educating the black population. So she used an example, Laura, about the teacher that she publicly chastised one of her,
I remember that.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of her AP students,
Yeah.
a young black woman. And so I could just hear Dr. Hutchings say, "What are you thinking? You teach in a integrated school. You This is a black student and she is in a situation where she's a minority, and you're dressing her down
Singling
and,
her out. Yeah.
yeah, and saying, oh, you're going to get a D in this class if you don't shape up, and
Yeah.
dressing. And so once again, you think about it, and I think a lot of teachers, and this mindset is still going on, which is fascinating to me, that
Mm.
Shaker still brings this, and she spoke about this in this forum. It's on the Facebook page for the Shaker schools,
Mhm.
but they're still talking about training the teachers in Shaker to understand, because obviously the black students are the majority in Shaker. So identifying and saying, we need to capture the culture of the black community and where they're coming from, and teach and respect that culture. And I think a lot of times, I think you guys, you get these teachers who are like, well, that's not the way it is in the real world. I'm not going to bend over backwards to, to think. And in that case, I forget the name of the teacher, but I'm sure on the side she's like, well, in the real world, she's got to learn that, people are not going to be nice to her. So why is she so upset? And it's like, no, that isn't what happens in the real world. You know, you don't get chastised by your boss publicly. You might get it behind closed doors,
Yeah.
but so it's like, wake up. And
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
brought in Dr. Hutchings. I went through, we videotaped a lot of um, the candidates that were up for the superintendent, and then I
Hmm.
caught kind of the back end. That's what the the search committee wanted. Dr. Hutchings, they wanted someone to say, hey everybody, what's up? We are educating Black students. We need to plug in more into where they're coming from, where their family life, their I don't and bring that and be aware of it when you're teaching them. And
Yeah.
they're still talking about this.
Yeah, I remember back
So,
we had Push Excel. We had Push
oh
Excel
yeah,
back in
yeah,
Shaker, which was
yeah.
a Jesse
Oh yeah, the Jesse
Jackson
Jackson thing.
initiative. I
Yeah,
don't know if do you remember Dana Mitchell? Dad
yeah,
Jerry Mitchell was a
yeah. He
baseball
was.
coach.
Yeah, my dad coached with. They did a co team, the Cardinals. I play with, and Dana designed the new gym
Yeah, he also
at
helped with the
Shaker.
RTA stuff too as well.
Okay,
But
yeah,
Dana was
yeah,
telling me, I think in the '90s, they were trying to pull Jerry, Mr. Mitchell, out of retirement to address what you were just talking about at Shaker, to try to figure out how to manage and deal with the black population and how to address that in curriculum wise and culturally and socially.
yeah. And
I
it's just.
feel
Oh,
I
sorry,
feel
Gabe. Go
mixed.
ahead.
Yeah, I feel, I remember that case, reading about it nationally and then reading about it in the book and stuff like that. I felt, honestly, I felt a little mixed on it.
Hmm.
Um, I felt that maybe the teacher's approach was maybe suited for us of a particular time period.
Yeah,
The chastisement, because
yeah.
I feel to a certain extent
Hmm.
this, what would be this younger generation that this woman was a part of, they needed, they, I don't know, to some extent, I want to say not as grit or resilient in a way, and that's a general
So,
statement I'm
okay.
making.
Yeah, no, I
And
gotcha.
so I think I think it was really escalated way beyond what it needed to be. And it's a very nuanced
Yeah,
thing, and it's a very slippery slope, because we're also dealing with technology. These younger students, kids, are wired differently because they've grown up solely with electronics.
Literally wired
Yeah.
differently.
yeah,
And so, I think up to a certain extent, it's a learning curve for maybe schools to have adjusted to, like, okay, these attention deficits that are happening with people wanting to be on their phones. So I feel like it was very nuanced, and I feel like some of that stuff was not really addressed as it needed to be. And then on the flip
yeah,
side of things, we talk about this shaker standard and whatever that is, and people living up
yeah,
to it. But a lot of that stuff also is established at home. If there's not, and I can't speak for this young woman, so I don't know what her home
yeah,
situation was.
yeah,
But if there's not a value or an expectation set in being consistent at home, then yeah, it's gonna you're gonna be at the whim of what everybody else is doing and everything else. So, but my whole
yeah,
point is, like, the way that they approached it, and the hand wringing and all this stuff. I think it was like, I don't know, it was just kind of blown way bigger than it needed to be.
yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, because there was, anyways, yeah, because we're referring for the folks at home. There's a really good book out. I guess, and obviously, you guys have both read Dreamtown, right?
Yes.
yeah, yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
was like the sort of the origin for this podcast,
The
Oh, no kidding.
impetus.
manifest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The impetus.
Yeah, there's a just to let the folks know, you can go on the Shaker Library channel. There is a really nice interview with her that kind of if you don't like me, I did I did listen and read her book, but there's a nice interview with her on there if you just want to get the cliff notes on it. But it's worth seeing because she did an awesome job
Yeah.
of chronicling, you know, and I don't know. Like I said, I they're God bless. Shaker is still busting their ass to keep this
Yeah.
thing going. Ludlow, actually, speaking of Ludlow, they are now rehabbing Ludlow, and they're going to have an early childhood center there.
That's what I heard.
Okay,
I
so
just
yeah,
want to
right,
make sure.
you guys got the propaganda when you came.
I mean,
I
I,
shouldn't say propaganda, but what was
I,
up with
I
Shaker?
just hope that they, keep the trees because one of the biggest issues around the rehabbing of Ludlow and reimagining the outdoor space is potentially removal of a lot of century-old trees that still might be viable, not diseased or whatever, but we still need the greenery there in and around the Ludlow area. You can't take out all the fucking trees.
Oh man,
So,
that's crazy.
yeah, but
That's too bad. But anyways, but yeah, I guess I'm there's still the main getting back to the real issue with Shaker right now, which has become different than where when we were there is a tremendous amount of people that are going to Shaker that are below the poverty line.
right.
And so yes, Carl Crable's house, Mr. Crable
Yes.
lived over there, really cool.
Proto
Yeah,
IKEA.
yeah, very IKEA. Like, yeah, my dad was good friends with him, one of the
Yeah.
young teachers. But yeah, Mr. Crable had that house over there. My dad, when he got punished once for doing something, and they put him over at Ludlow, and my dad would hang out with Mr. Crable, do what do, because they were little, so he would go over to his house and sit during his job. But
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, anyways, but yeah, no, I'm sorry, that sucks. But anyways, but getting back to that, I mean, I don't think there's like I don't think you could find a community where you can have a good percentage of the kids that are going to your school that live in a one bedroom apartment, off of Van Aken with
Yeah.
like five people who are, in the WIC program getting, and then you have a kid who is living in a $700,000 home on Brighton,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
whose parents are, executives at, a lawyer and a doctor. I mean, you just don't have that. And
Yeah.
there was an article recently in the Atlantic, and it just sort of touched on, it's like, it costs a lot of money to be smart these days.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
tutors and
Yes.
kids don't mess around, parents don't mess around. Like, oh yeah, my kid likes soccer, okay, I'm gonna hire a professional private coach, to tutor him. I mean, with like Keith Abood, for many years he was a private hockey coach. Parents would
Oh,
hire him to work with their kids. I mean, we didn't have that when we
no.
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously tutors and so for I guess part of that gap looking at as far as God bless a kid who is coming out of a situation where in poverty and then trying to make up that difference when
Mhm.
the parents with the big bucks just keep on pumping and pumping and pumping them in, like I said,
Yeah.
just tutors and it just yeah, I mean it's just a tremendous amount of money that's spent on developing this super kid, and you have a bunch of kids who are just happy to go to school and get breakfast,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and so I just don't want, I don't know, like, so I don't know, obviously we of course you want to encourage all students to excel, but also recognizing that that just showing up is a really great thing for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So and then the other issue too is that once again, with as we know, with people who live in poverty, they move around a lot.
Yeah.
So a big thing with Shaker was that kids would go in and then they would leave. So they would go to Heights, and then they would go to the East Cleveland schools, and then they would go to Cleveland schools, and then they would come back to Shaker. And so
Or
they
they
would,
or they were using another address and get discovered,
yeah,
and then have
uh,
to figure out a way to
yeah. That was the big thing, but that was always kind of a sticking point with a lot of with the administration was, hey, we're doing our best, but when the kids leave, we're catching them up when they come back.
Yeah.
Right.
So it kills the rhythm of what they're doing because you just have people coming and going. So that's been, well, like I said, God bless them, man. They're still over there doing the work.
Well, the
Yeah.
part about it in the book that was really highlighted was there were complaints that the parents weren't as involved, but just being able to get their kids over the threshold so that they could get in the space to where that they could attend Shaker schools and being able to pay those high taxes, it was a high bar to try to reach and be able to be with your kids and be able to get my family didn't have the money for me to get tutoring or what have you.
Neither did
So
mine.
yeah,
Yeah, no, neither did mine. But and as I said, I didn't have the if my dad was like, "Oh, you're into hockey, we're going to get you a private coach that's going to help you, do your
Hmm.
crossovers better." It's like there was no such thing. I
Yeah.
didn't
and
know
now
there's
now it's
travel
a
teams and stuff.
yeah. My kids were brought up in travel teams, and my daughter, when she wasn't playing her sport, she was traveling the country
Oh
all
my
over
God.
the place. And my son ended up playing baseball at Tulane. I didn't know if you knew that. He
Oh, no kidding.
pitched at Tulane, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So, but that was, I mean, it's almost expected to the high school that they went to. My daughter was on a state champion volleyball team, and it was expected that you were playing travel and that you were getting the coaching. You were coached up before you even
Oh,
got to the team.
yeah,
So,
right. Yeah, that volleyball is hardcore, man.
and baseball is just, it used to be the excuse my French, but the redneck sport, the sport that any poor kids, well, in other countries, the poor kids
Yeah,
play it, but in the United States, it's big business, just like AAU basketball. It's,
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not going to play. You're not going to get a chance unless you have uh, access. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean that was the beauty of Shaker Boys League, man.
Mhm.
You had a couple of practices a weekend, or sorry, during the weekday, and then you played ball on Saturday, and you were home by noon. To play
Yeah.
cops and robbers or whatever.
Stratomatic.
Man. And that was, and it was just, yeah, the Shaker Boys League was awesome. Obviously, you got a chance to meet kids from all over
Free
Shaker,
Facebook.
but it was, yeah, pre Facebook. But anyways, but yeah, the guys who put that all together, Larry Berman and Corsi, and my dad was part of that as well. He was the one that changed it's now the Shaker. I don't even know if it's still around. I'm sure some baseball. He changed it to
Yeah.
the Shaker Baseball League.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
There were girls obviously that played. A
Yeah.
funny story before, whatever. But my dad, stayed on as a coach after I left, and he was like on the board. And so he said to me one time, he said, I went to this game, Brian, and I kind of had an interesting situation. There was a policeman, an off duty policeman, that was coaching first base, and he was in his uniform,
Hmm.
and he was wearing his gun.
Wow.
And so my dad had to approach him and say, I really don't think it's a good idea for a person that has a gun to be coaching first base. So I think we need to take a look at this. So you can't have I think you just can't have a gun and you coach at first
No.
base.
Do you remember Mr. Coyle? Remember Frank
Yeah,
Coyle?
Frank Coyle. Yeah, there was a bunch of characters in that damn.
Yeah, he actually had a wooden leg. Frank Coyle had a
Yeah,
wooden leg. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. There was and like I said, God bless my dad. He had bruises all over his damn legs from pitching, batting practice, and Eric, his arm was probably sore as can be when he was playing ball with you, from throwing batting practice the night before. But whatever. That's the kind of guy he is. It's just like, hey,
Yeah,
Eric
he's a
loves
great.
Eric loves like Eric loves baseball as much as I do. I'm gonna have a catch. This is very selfless person. So, but
Service
anyways,
above
but
self.
yeah, the Shaker Boys League was like a. Gabe, did you play Shaker Boys League?
Yes. I played on I believe it was the Polaris and the Bulldogs, maybe. Yeah, I think I stopped after junior A. Yeah, I didn't do senior B or senior A.
Yeah, I
But
was all.
yeah.
Yeah, I was all through it, man. I was hardcore. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a great. Yeah, it was a bunch of characters. Mr. Silverman, Nate Silverman. He was.
The
What?
Johans, all
Yeah,
them.
the Johans. It was, but once again, it was cool because, I mean, I don't mean to sound like an old fuddy duddy, but once again, you were able to, like I always remember, like John Denny. John was on, my team, and John was miserable playing basketball. His parents must have made him play,
Wow,
Yeah.
I can't even
But I mean,
imagine.
he
Yeah.
just looked so miserable. But
Yeah.
but whatever. But I got to know John.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, in it is sad. Obviously getting to the whole thing. And they pointed that out where a kid who's a mediocre ball player or even a lesser ball player can go. In the old days, could play all the way through to to middle school.
Caleb
And
Nelson,
oh yeah,
the Brainiac. That was,
oh the brain, yeah,
everyone
the brain,
started there. That was the proving ground,
yeah.
socialization field, I call it.
And
But anyways, but yeah, and hockey was the same way. You just you played with kids that sucked and that were really good, and they're still my friends.
yeah.
I didn't care. I don't know. I don't mean to say that, but it was because I was the worst player, and sometimes I was the best player. But I don't know. It is too bad that kids can't get more of that socialization of sports now because it is so
So
like
cutthroat, man. It's
it
so
is. They
cutthroat.
they evaluate you very quickly, and it's like, no, yeah, and you're done. You're third grade, and you're
Well,
not
even
going to do.
Greg Fuller was saying back then they were cheating in the drafts. They were somehow colluding and putting teams together
Oh, with
and
the
keeping them together at the drafts
oh
for the
with the Shaker
Bigger
Boys League.
Boys League. Yeah.
Oh no, they did that because I was the number one. I have the honor of being. I was the number one because I was young for my class, so I
What
could.
did you play? What position?
I
What position?
played. I was a center fielder.
Okay, that's right. Center fielder.
And I also played infield too. I did a lot. I pitched. I did a lot of different things. And
You had a lot of
but
hair, a lot of hair.
oh yeah, I did have a lot of hair. Yeah, that big Irish wiry hair. But anyways, yeah. So I was the first. I was the first pick of senior A. I was the number one pick,
Hold
and
up the jersey.
somebody. And so I forget who it was, but one of the managers picked me.
Uh-huh.
So my dad would have to trade a really good player for me. So yeah, they were pulling that stuff all
Wow.
the time. Those guys.
Wow.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, that
That's
was
that's
the
worthy
good
of a
old days.
documentary, man. Like a documentary about Shaker Boys League. I mean, it'd be very
Yes.
niche,
Yeah.
but it could be a part of a Shaker history series.
Oh,
Shaker
it
Boys
was
League.
it was these characters. There were a lot of these
Yeah.
older Jewish men who were part. It was because Larry Berman, he was a character. This Cohn. There was a bunch of Glasser. I mean, yeah, they were just a bunch of characters.
You know
And
what? You know what? A name that came up to me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. An Irish name, Pat Flynn. Do you remember Pat
no,
Flynn?
no, I don't remember Pat
Oh,
Flynn.
okay. He came up. He just came to. But go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Sullivan. You know what I really when I think about, and this is like the weirdest thing. Like when I've been back to Shaker and I drive around and I see all the street names, my
Yeah,
mind goes back to the Shaker Boys League schedule that was hand typed and mimeographed,
yeah,
and it had everybody's address and phone number on there. And I'll
yeah.
remember like random street names because of random players that I don't remember anymore that lived on,
Oh,
you know,
Yeah,
lived on like Attleboro or Fontenay or something
yeah,
of that nature, you know.
yeah.
So
The good old days of, you get on your bike and you put your glove, on the bars, you kind of fashion in there, you
Oh
go,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I remember
you
that.
drive to practice, and
yeah,
as
yeah.
as you know, Eric, now, you go to a practice and the parents are all there.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it,
It cost me money every time my kids left the house. You know, they had no idea of riding a bicycle or getting there any way that they could.
yeah. I think of just, all the times that just, riding my bike around Shaker, I'm sure you guys too, and just hanging out and, just whatever, just going to the playground or just kind
Baskin
of,
Robbins after the game.
Baskin Robbins. We would go to Dairy Queen too, up
Yeah.
on Sugar and Boulevard and Orange and stuff. And, um, yeah, I don't know. Obviously the good old days, but yeah, that was fun. With Shaker Boys League, like I said, there was, once again, Shaker, a lot of characters, a lot of, lot
Yeah.
of, lot of big personalities.
Well,
So,
we're gonna speaking of big personalities, another big storyteller we're gonna have on next week is Dave Udelf.
oh yes,
Yes,
Well, yeah,
I'm
yes,
sure.
that'll be a
Yes,
great
I'm sure
show.
Dave is happy to be following me because I love Dave. He was good friends with my dad, and but whatever. I always gave whatever. I was not a bad kid, but I was not. I was a pain in the ass too,
you were
and
you
so
were a young ruffian,
I was a
rascallion,
I was
whatever
I,
those words.
I was a pain in the ass, and so yeah, I gave Dave a because he was the sports camp guy. I don't know that we were talking about
Yeah,
with Eric.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I gave him a pain in the ass there, of course. So,
You kept him
but yeah,
young.
Dave,
Yeah.
Dave definitely knows a hell of a lot about Shaker, and so yeah, he'll be a great guest for sure. So
Yeah, man.
yeah, and he's a character. So, anyways, but yeah, I don't know. Are we?
Remember that game? I just came to my head. I haven't thought about it in years. Remember that game, Running Bases,
Yes.
Oh
where
yeah,
you
yeah,
have the two bags
yeah,
and you have the two guys, and then you would
yeah,
get
yeah, and
people in
then
the rundown and
Great
yeah, and then it,
agility exercise.
yeah, and
yeah,
then at Mercer we had, someone just drew a square, we get,
strikeout. Yeah,
yeah, strikeout, or just I used to just I blew my arm out, I'm sure,
that's
because
where my arm is. It's at Lomond from throwing
yeah,
those tennis balls
yeah,
as
tennis
hard as
balls.
I
Yeah,
possibly
yeah,
could,
they always used to say, "Don't throw those tennis balls; it's gonna blow your arm out."
and
Like,
I
what else?
did.
What else am I gonna do?
Wiffle
Uh,
balls too.
That was before, obviously no video games or anything. So it's like, yeah, you
yeah.
just go out and pretend you're J.R. Richard or
Oh yeah.
Nolan
Nolan
Ryan,
Ryan.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I mean that was our fun back in the day.
Atari. Atari. I
Yeah,
just remember, the dawn of the video age, getting the Atari 2600.
Yep.
oh yeah,
Yeah. And those
yeah,
cartridges.
Remember how rough that joystick was? I
Yeah.
hated that thing.
Yeah.
yeah. My friend Rob Spear had that in television one.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the next
Mattel.
one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Mattel one. It was like the rich kids had it. It was a little
Yeah, it
higher
was next
end.
level. Yep.
Yeah, it was a
Yep.
higher end thing, and we used to play baseball with it. And but yeah, I never really got into it.
You know what killed me?
But
I talked in an earlier show. I used to get mad at the Jewish kids because those Mattel electronic games came out,
yeah,
and um, what is it? I can't. Not Christmas, but damn it! Why can't I think of it? What's the
Hanukkah?
Hanukkah? Yeah,
oh,
they would
Hanukkah,
have Hanukkah.
yeah,
And by the time Christmas came, all those Mattel electronic games were
oh,
gone. You
we're
remember how
gone.
hard those things are to get?
Yeah.
Man, that
There's,
pissed me off.
there was no Amazon.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Well, man, is there anything else that
oh
comes to mind that
oh
you wanted to say about
oh
Shaker?
like I said, I'm amazed. Obviously, it's really worth reading Laura Meckler's book if you haven't read it, because it's
Yeah.
an amazing the people, just the people that it's an incredible story of a community that just wouldn't let go, man. They kept fighting. And once again, like I said, for the guys that were and girls um, that were black that were coming through the school system, it was not, as I reiterate, it was not easy for them,
Yeah.
and they it was very hard to break that ceiling, and so they deserve a lot of credit too, because you know the, they do.
Yeah.
They were on the front
No.
lines, and guys like Walter, like I said, I use Walter Radcliffe, who's and
Right.
Jimmy Malone, like I said, I can go on and on. Art Vance, just like I said, they paid a lot of, we were standing on their shoulders.
And
Yeah.
the
Indeed.
amazing thing is the rich people continue to pay those high property taxes and
Yeah.
still hung in there, even though that they maybe weren't always in agreement with what was going on at the schools.
Yeah, they continue, and obviously Shaker had that. They still have the long run of passing the levies, and yeah, it's a wacky community, man.
You know what
It's
they
like,
need? They need a like. Remember when we went through? We had the Ohio civics class, right? We had to learn about Ohio. Ohio
oh
had
yeah,
88 counties.
yeah,
Shaker needs a Shaker history type of civics class, like that every Shaker student should be familiar with the legacy of Shaker coming through. Now, if that can
yeah.
happen at elementary school, middle school, but they need that.
No,
They need
yeah,
that history.
no. I think Laura's book probably should be required reading.
It should be one of them, yeah, for sure.
In yeah,
And just yeah, just
yeah,
like historical stuff, like
yeah, because
I mean,
that was a yep, it was a tremendous effort that definitely needs to be learned. Yeah, because
yeah,
if you remember, they would make us sing like the simple gifts. Is this it? The gift to be simple? Is it? We did a thing on the
Hmm.
Shakers, a unit on the Shakers. I don't know
yeah,
if you guys remember that, but that was once again obviously the Shakers, the religious cult that didn't believe in procreation. So
Yeah, that did them in.
yeah,
like
yeah. And they
Wow.
had a couple black people in formerly enslaved people with them at
oh
that
yeah,
colony.
right.
And
Oh
I
yeah,
the
mean, I didn't know that.
and
So
the
would
Van
yeah.
Swearingtons were pretty much like the Trumps, if you really think
Yeah,
about it, in
weird.
creating a community that was supposed to be exclusive to only a certain type and excluding certain types out of it. And
Yeah, I mean,
so it's
no,
secular.
it's
So we're going through
like I
another
said.
cycle.
I guess, like I said, going back to like it's a wacky, but it's just as far as you think about it. Yeah, I mean, you had right this religious cult, then you had these guys that they slept together in the same room. They were
yeah,
their
yeah,
brother. You know that
yeah.
story. They're
Yeah.
weird
Never
guys, but
married or nothing.
never married. They were. I mean, I guess their business eventually failed.
Yes.
So
And they didn't use their own money to create Shaker Heights. They went about it the exact same way that the Trumps did. They used
yeah,
Use other
everyone else's
people's
money.
and
money.
then they obviously they were racists. So and then I guess I was reading because I was trying to catch up on my Shaker history for the show, but a guy took over from them, bought their I think it was Young or whatever. He bought them out and continued the racism.
Yeah, the
Yeah, as
covenants
far
and
as
all that.
the restricted, and they said up until whatever, the story, but obviously that went on up until the 50s, whatever. As far as the whatever, we get to the point, but
Yeah.
it was amazing how long that lasted.
Yeah.
The restricted properties. You would have thought that after World War II that would have kind of um, you know dissipated, but unfortunately it didn't.
It'll really be interesting to see how Shaker holds up in these next 4 years and
Yeah.
afterwards, because it'll really be challenged to have to really go back and undo what they've worked so hard to do.
Or I would even add, the fact that Shaker attracts a lot of people we can't be, we certainly couldn't be naive to think, oh, well, amongst those people, there might be people who identify with that particular party, that, they
Yeah.
cherry pick how they view their affiliation, but they still want to live in Shaker, but they look at this in a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was,
just in fact, like over the last 24 hours, I mean, down in Columbus, in the Short North area,
Yeah,
you had a
I believe
Nazi
that.
rally,
oh, okay.
motherfuckers at 1 p.m. on a Saturday, strolling down through Short North with their Nazi flags and faces covered up, unmolested, unmolested.
Yeah.
So, like how, yeah, like how can
All I can
stuff?
say, Gabe,
Yeah,
is that if I was at OSU, and I think, let's just put it that way. Let's give Shaker, you know, we'll, well, like I said, where we were raised in a community where we were told you can do, what you
yeah,
want to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
I think that spirit also goes with, what, I would have been on the line trying to stop those guys.
oh,
And, and
yes,
obviously a Shaker, and whatever. I mean, obviously, we're in a fight right now. I can't,
yeah,
you can't just say, oh, well, I'll just deal with it, man. That's we're in a fight, and
yeah,
I want to believe, obviously the talented people that we went to school with, they're going to be part of our team.
Hopefully.
yeah. Hopefully,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I hope
I sure hope they will.
those of us that didn't see the light will see the light when they see what the repercussions are.
That buyer's remorse.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think people are, yeah, in that case, because in discussions, obviously, whatever. Let's not even pollute ourselves with that situation. We're gonna
yeah,
fight it. We're gonna fight it, guys. So we know
yeah,
that.
yeah,
We're, and like I said, I feel confident that, like I said, with our education, that we were told, hey, speak up for we're gonna speak out. We're smart people. We're gonna get, we're gonna figure this out, man.
yeah. Indeed,
We're gonna fight the good fight.
you got
We're
to,
red.
or what's the
We're Red
point?
Raiders. We're Red Raiders.
Shaker
Exactly.
Raiders,
What was
Shaker
the point of
Raiders,
that experience if this is our time?
Yeah.
fix bayonets.
Thank you so
All
much
right,
for having me on the
hey
show.
man,
Thank
thank
you
you.
guys for doing these shows. It's really great. It's fun to hear everybody, different perspective on Shaker and what they're up to now. So
Yeah,
hey, I'm doing work for Chagrin Yoga. So
okay.
if you're in Shaker, or sorry, if you're in Chagrin Falls and you want to do some yoga, go to Chagrin Yoga.
Chagrin Yoga. Hey, you know
Shameless
what? Also,
plug. I'm doing some social media for them. So there's my
Okay,
social media.
Shaker Yoga. I mean, no, Chagrin Yoga.
Chagrin Yoga, man.
In
Come on in and
picturesque
practice.
Chagrin Falls.
Yeah.
You need to stretch out.
You need
Go
to
to
do it.
Chagrin Falls.
Little
Chagrin
hot
Yoga.
little
Tell him
sweat.
Brian sent you.
Get your flow on.
Yes, yes. Vinyasa.
Vinyasa. A little
yeah.
shameless promotion.
You know what we need to do, Sully?
What's that?
We need to advocate for a Shaker Film Commission, so we can bring film and TV projects to take advantage of Shaker. So
that'd be great. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that offline.
Hey, have you seen Geraldo anywhere around town?
Oh no, I haven't seen him around town.
Mm.
I haven't. I used to go to his I would cut class and sometimes go to his shows. He would in Times Square. He would have that was his studio, and so I'd go see the wacky shows. They were always fun to go to. When he had the Geraldo show, the first one. He's a wacky dude, but whatever. He's a wacky guy, but whatever. I think his wife said, "You're dangerous. You're getting into trouble when you're in big cities." So he loves the ladies. So I think she said, "We're going to Cleveland. It's a good place for you to chill."
Yeah. No, but Jerry Rivera was he was about that. He was edgy and political back in the day up in New York.
obviously
Yeah.
the famous thing is his Willowbrook with him exposing the mental institutions, the state mental
Yeah.
institutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was great work, man.
Yeah.
That
He jumped the
opened.
shark with the Capone
Yeah,
safe.
and then he's floated with the wind, and
Yeah.
but I
Anyway.
still so. All right, man.
All
This
right,
is
man.
awesome.
This is
You
great,
hang with
Sully,
you
to have
guys.
you on there. I
Great to
love
be
the
here.
stories and the knee-deep history, man. So you keep on being that beacon, and
Right. Yeah.
the shaker accountability. I mean, I'm with you on that. And so
And thank you for our show support and your
yes,
Oh,
that too, without question.
You're
really
welcome. Like I
appreciate
said,
that.
I really love what you guys are doing, and it's a lot of fun to watch the shows. So when I can, I'll pick up on them if I can't. But yeah, thank you guys
All
for
right.
doing it. A lot of fun. So
All right, to everybody that tuned in today to hear Brian Sullivan, aka Sully, talk. Thank you very much for tuning in. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, the Podcast Index, or on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for next week. Who we got
Big
next
one
week?
next week. Dave Udoff.
The master storyteller.
the master story. He knows where a lot of bodies are buried.
Yes,
too.
he does.
So,
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you don't want to miss it.
you're not.
If you
All
don't
right.
want if you don't want anything stated about you, you might want to give him a call. Maybe a bribe will help. Because
He like I said, I'm sure he's mortified. Like, I have to follow that idiot.
Dave will put people on blast.
He will-
Well, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody who's listening, have a great week. Drink cups of resiliency, and we'll see you next Sunday on the Shaker
Awesome.
Heights. Experiences may vary. Okay, hold the stream. We're off. Hold on.
ooh, I stopped the music.